Good evening. Welcome to the Derry Town Council meeting for Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. If we could please stand for the pledge. Council Couts Chorus.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have a full house tonight. Must be something special tonight. So for those new, emergency exits in the back of the room. In the event of emergency, need help, plenty of uniformed personnel here to help you. Just reach out to them. If you have cell phones, please silence them. And we'll do a roll call. Councilor Chericello.
Good evening.
Councilor Katsoukaris.
Good evening.
Councilor Flood.
Hello.
Councilor Granessi.
Good evening.
Councilor McEachern.
Good evening.
Councilor Spencer.
No.
She said good evening, and good evening from the chair. Good, and also we have our town administrator and our Madam Town Clerk, Tina. Public forum.
Move to open public forum.
All right, motion by Councilor Chericello, second by Councilor McEachern. On the motion, Councilor Chericello.
Yes.
Councilor Spencer. Councilor Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Councilor Flood.
Yes.
Councilor Granessi.
Yes.
Councilor McEachern.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Public forum is now open. If you wish to speak, please come up and do so. State your name and address for the record. And the floor is yours.
No one on.
Oh,
Up.
Yay, Richard.
You made it just before I was gonna close it, Richard.
I'll do.
I saw you open your mouth, and I said, "Oh,
I don't.
There we go. Good man.
here you go."
He's deaf.
Can you ask the question?
Well.
Good evening. Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. Before the meeting tonight, we had a little soiree for someone. And one of the things that, since I'm her chauffeur,
Yes.
taking Phyllis up to the State House,
Right.
I was given the task of finding out what it was that she did up at State House. You know, so I believe it was 19 terms you did at the State House?
Here? I don't know.
no, at the State House
I-
in Concord.
Oh,
Yeah.
in the State House?
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
a long time.
So anyhow,
50 years.
the
I do it for the money, $100 a year.
yeah, well, the food's good up there too.
The food is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes you buy,
Oh, I'm talking about the free lunches.
not very often, but you do.
So anyhow, in 19 terms, Phyllis has served on a number of committees. You know, and so I asked the ladies up there if they would figure out what she did when she was up there. And Phyllis has served on Children and Family Law. Do you remember that?
Wow.
Do you remember election law? Mm-hmm. Oh, are you the one that got the voter ID in? No.
Wow, you did your homework, honey.
Yeah. And then she was on environment and agriculture.
Yeah.
Oh, these are all one-term committees. And then executive department and administration. Wow. And then 5 terms on health, human services,
Right.
and elderly affairs. Yeah. Did you do a good job for the elderly when you're on that? Yeah. And when she got kicked off of that,
How'd you know?
I think it was, I can't remember. Anyhow, legislative administration,
Yeah.
local and regulated revenue. That's good.
Yeah,
The,
I loved it.
We all would need revenue.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think the last 6 terms, you've been on state, federal relations and veterans affairs.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Make sure the veterans get their medication and a place to live. That's my motto.
Yeah. medication, and a place to live. All right. Well, anyhow, so that's only 18 committees.
Ah.
So have you figured out what you're going to do next term?
I'll run.
No. Which committee are you going to be on?
The what?
Which committee are you going to be on next term?
The same, veterans.
I understand that there's the opening on judiciary.
They meet too often. We'll see.
Well,
We'll see. Leave it up to my best friend.
all right. So anyhow, so besides, how long have you been a counselor here?
I don't know. Tina, how long have I been a count?
A long time.
A long
A long
time.
time.
Good answer, Tina.
There you go, honey.
So thank you for doing what you did,
Thank you.
serving. And next year you can sit out here with me and we can come up and complain
I will,
about
too.
the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak about anything?
Seeing no one jumping to the forefront. I'm gonna
Seeing
make-
none rise online, Mr. Chair.
And seeing no one online, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right. Motion to close public forum, seconded by Council Katsoukaris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public forum is now closed. Consent agenda 24-17. Approved non-public minutes from February 20th, 2024. Those minutes are sealed. And consent agenda 24-18. Approved minutes from February 20th, 2024. I'm going to break these up because Council Flood was not here for the last one. So on those first two items, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Councilor McEachran, second by Councilor Katsoukaris. On the motion, Councilor Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Councilor Flood.
Abstain.
Councilor Granessi.
Yes.
Councilor McEachran.
Yes.
Councilor Spencer. You're muted. Hold on.
We can't hear her.
She doesn't have her mute on, but
See if we can fix that.
Okay, let's go. Yeah,
Technical difficulties. Stand by.
she'll say
We can
yes.
fix, volume mixer. Hey. Let's try that.
Councilor Spencer, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes. Can you hear me?
she's talking because it's coming in up here, but we still can't hear her.
Interesting. We'll keep working on that. Not sure what that problem is. We're gonna keep working on
Just
it.
have her raise her hand
Okay.
and say yes.
You saying you get VU back there?
Councilor Spencer, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Do you approve the minutes?
Yeah, she could do
No.
a thumbs up.
Okay. Abstain. Councilor Chericello, do you approve the last minutes?
Yeah, I'm a yes.
Okay. And I vote yes. So we have 2 abstentions.
Yep.
Madam Clerk. All right. Consent agenda item 24-19, resolution 2024-014 to apply for, accept grant funding to acquire hydraulic rescue equipment for the fire department. There'll be a public hearing on that matter, March 19th, 2024. Then we have item number 24-20, resolution 2024-015 to apply for, accept grant funding to purchase personal protective equipment for the fire department. Also, public hearing, March 19th, 2024. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to accept those items by Councilor McEachran, second by Councilor Katsoukaris. Councilor Chericello.
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Councilor Flood. Yes. Councilor Granessi.
Yes.
Councilor McEachran.
Yes.
Councilor Spencer. And that was a yes, and the chair votes yes. Motion carries.
Then keep the channel clear.
All right. Chair's report. I have a couple things not listed that I'm going to go over first. The town moderator would like a couple minutes. Lisa Hulkern, please come on up.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. First, I would just like to thank Phyllis for being a constant for as many years as I have lived in Derry. Thank you very much for all of your years of service. It's very much appreciated. I would just like to give you guys an update on the upcoming election on March 12th. Today, myself and Tina Guilford, the town clerk, and some members of the public and of our election team came in today and tested the voting machines. Everything tested out great. You can see the ballot boxes are in the back of the room, ready to go for next Tuesday. Thank you to the guys at the DPW for getting those over here for us so that we could get that done. I would also like to make a note that we will be counting the ballots tomorrow. In order to have a good ending count, you have to have a good beginning count, so we will be here doing that tomorrow. All of the ballots are in. Last we spoke, we had talked about getting some of the kids involved and giving them the opportunity to do some community service and to volunteer at the elections. And we're just starting to get the word out, but we're already getting some kids that are very interested in learning about the election process and being involved in their communities. So you can look forward to see some of our high school kids at the elections on Tuesday. In addition to that, today I spoke to the last of the 7 school K-8 building principals, and all 7 elementary and K-8 schools will be participating in the Kids Vote too. So please, 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 when you come out to vote, and I am expecting every single one of you to come out and vote on Tuesday, please bring your children. They will have the opportunity to vote for a fun day at their school, whether that be a popcorn party or a crazy hat day or pajama day or ice cream in the cafeteria. The children will have choices on their ballots. Each school has their own ballot, and there will be tables in both foyers, so kids will be able to vote as well. So please, I encourage you to bring them, teach them about the process. And also we will have the Girl Scouts will also be on campus selling cookies. If you haven't found your Girl Scout cookies yet, there's an opportunity for you to support your local Girl Scout troop. Yes, your local Girl Scout troops. You'll find them on the way out, so we don't get cookies on your ballots, but they will be there. A couple of notes about Tuesday. There will be no school, so we will be on campus. There will be professional development and also some teacher workshops. So there will be staff on the campus with us, but there will be, other than the juniors and seniors that are volunteering, there won't be kids going to school on Tuesday. So again, please bring them with you to come and vote. And we will not have a new traffic pattern for this election. Unfortunately, our turnout numbers don't justify it. So please make a liar out of me. And I want you all to come and mess up the traffic and vote. And justify that we need to have a traffic pattern, because that was brilliant the last election. The traffic pattern worked out great. You will find a parking map shortly on the town website. You'll find it on the town clerk's page, town moderator's page, and we will do our best to get that on social media when the parking map is available. It looks like we have a great team. Everybody is ready to go for Tuesday, and it looks like it's going to be a great day weather-wise. So, knock on wood. Any questions?
Good job.
All right, I will see you all on Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, Chairman's report. I have a couple of things on here that are not listed on yours, but I'm going to take some personal privilege for a second. For those who are here, our last meeting, we appointed Chief Haggart as the new fire chief, replacing Chief Jim Richardson. So I'd like to thank Chief Richardson for his almost 3 decades of service to our town. He was very dedicated to us, and he carried the torch and got us to where we are today. And now it's your turn, Chief Haggart, to go from here on. So that's a perfect segue. If you notice, we have a big crowd this evening. As previously mentioned, tonight is Council Katz Chorus's last town council meeting.
Oh.
So with that, the flowers and whatnot, we have
Oh, beautiful.
Couple
Thank
little-
you for everything.
couple little things that I want to do for you. First of all, we got an email a little while ago from Brenda Keith from Booton Law. It says, I understand Council Katsoukaris is retiring from the council tonight. What an honor it was serving with her on the council so long ago. She is a bright light with a quick smile and always positive personality. Phyllis was my Girl Scout leader when I was a younger child growing up in Derry. Then in the late 1980s, I served on the town council with her. And today, as legal counsel to the town, I continue to be proud to call her a friend. What a wonderful and long career serving the community of Derry. Thank you and congratulations, Phyllis.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Brenda.
All right, so that's from her. And then here we have
My glory.
a resolution from the New Hampshire Senate in recognition of her time after many years of service to the town of Derry from the New Hampshire Senate, signed by Regina Birdsell, a senator.
Oh,
So that's-
thank you.
So that's for you.
Thank you. Thank you. My glory.
But wait, there's more.
Oh,
Charlie's been busy.
I was busy today,
yes, you were. Thank you very much.
but this one, I'll read this one.
Oh,
And then this is from the State of New Hampshire House of Representatives, a declaration in recognition of the Honorable Phyllis Katsoukaris. Whereas the Honorable Phyllis Katsoukaris has dedicated nearly 40 years to the town of Derry as both a state representative and town council member. And whereas the town of Derry would like to thank Phyllis for her commitment and time spent on the town council, first from 1985 to 1994, then from 2003 to 2006, and from 2012 to the present day. And whereas she has actively engaged in her community and has given freely of her time as past president of the Derry Junior Women's Club, long-term member of the Derry Police Senior Advisory Committee, former chairwoman of the Highway Safety Committee, and former New Hampshire Heart Fund chairperson. And whereas her faith and family keep her grounded as she serves others in the form of the Tabernacle Society, Daughters of Isabella, and as a Eucharist minister at St. Thomas Aquinas. And whereas her ability to make everyone feel connected came through in her work on the Derry Cable TV show, Capital Chat with Phyllis and Pat,
yeah.
and her work as a former reporter for the Derry News in a segment called Derry Doings. And whereas she not only served on the town council, but is working as a state representative and has served on many committees, including Children and Family Law, Election Law, Environmental Agricultural, Executive Departments Administration, Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs, Legislative Administration, Local and Regulated Revenue, and currently state federal relations and Veterans Affairs. Now therefore be it declared today that we celebrate the Honorable Phyllis Katsoukaris and recognize her for her hard work and dedication to the Derry Town Council, and be it further declared by my signature inscribed below, the House of Representatives does publicly thank her for serving the people in her community and across the state. May she continue to inspire our younger generation as they forge new paths ahead of the state of New Hampshire. Dated this 5th day of March, 2024, Sherman Packard, Speaker of the House.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you.
So that's for you.
Another
We
one?
have another one.
Glory be.
I went by the governor's office today and got this, but I'm gonna let Councilor McGuckin read this one,
Ben, you
if you don't mind.
get the two shot there.
He loves to read.
I guess I get the longer ones.
Yes.
State of New Hampshire by His Excellency Christopher T. Sununu, Governor, a commendation.
Can't hear you.
Whereas Phyllis Katsoukaris has devoted numerous years of serving the town of Derry, tirelessly striving to enhance the community's quality of life, and whereas commencing in 1979, Phyllis commenced her service with a one-year appointment to the Budget Committee, subsequently earning election to a 2-year and 3-year terms in 1980 and 82, respectively, during which time she assumed the role of chair. And whereas Phyllis has demonstrated unwavering commitment to the town council, securing election to 2- and 3-year terms in November of 85, 87, respectively, followed by another 3-year term in March of 91, serving all terms as councilor at large. Additionally, in 2003, was elected to a 3-year term as the District 1 councilor and has the distinction of being the longest-serving councilor in the town's history. And whereas Phyllis has served as a state representative for an impressive 19 terms alongside her late husband, George, earning the recognition as the longest-serving political couple in the state of New Hampshire, and has held esteemed positions with the National Foundation of Women Legislators, including chairing crime, justice, and terrorism, substance abuse committees, and whereas Phyllis has contributed to the Executive Board of Rockingham County, served as a member of VFW Post 1617, worked as a former reporter to the Derry News in segment Derry Doings, chaired the New Hampshire Heart Fund, and has actively participated in the Derry Police Department's Senior Advisory Committee, served as the town's liaison to the Derry Heritage Commission, represented St. Thomas Aquinas Paris as a Eucharistic minister. And whereas Phyllis takes pride in her role as a loving mother to Chuck, Deborah, and Laura, boasting 10 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren, and a vast network of family and friends, now therefore I, Christopher T. Sununu, Governor of the State of New Hampshire, do hereby commend Phyllis May Katsoukaris and express sincere gratitude for her dedication and extraordinary contributions to the town of Derry.
Wow. Who is this wonderful person? Glory. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
So,
That's amazing.
you.
Thank you.
last one.
Oh, glory.
It's like the old style. We did it the old style.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
So this one,
The best is last.
this is the best one from last.
Okay.
This is a proclamation from us.
Oh, thank you.
So proclamation, whereas Phyllis May Katsoukaris has dedicated countless years of serving the town of Derry, committed in making her town a great place to live. And beginning in 1979, Phyllis was appointed to a one-year term in the Budget Committee, elected to a two-year term in 1980, and a three-year term in 1982, where she was appointed chair. A lot of this is repetitive, but it's
Oh,
worth
that's
it.
all
But it's
right.
worth it. You've earned it.
Glory, honey.
Phyllis
Thank
has
you.
dedicated countless years of service as a town councilor. She was elected to her two-year term in November 1985, a three-year term in 1987, and in March 1991, elected to another 3 years, serving on all terms as councilor at large. In 2003, Phyllis was elected for a three-year term as District 1 councilor. From 2012 to present day, Phyllis has selflessly served the town of Derry as councilor at large, making her the longest-serving councilor in the town. Phyllis has been a state representative for the last 19 terms. It is here where her and her late husband George were also honored and recognized as the longest acting political couple. She has served on the Eagle Executive Board in Rockingham County, a member of the VFW Post 1617, a former reporter for Derry News, and a segment called Derry Doings. I never heard of that until we did this homework on this.
Yes, I guess you
So,
did. Derry Doings.
Derry Doings.
Derry News.
And a former New Hampshire Heart Fund chairperson. Phyllis has been an active member of the Derry Police Department Senior Advisory Committee, town's liaison for the Derry Heritage Commission, and she represents St. Thomas Aquinas. And whereas Phyllis is the proud mother of Chuck, Deborah, and Laurie, she has 10 grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren, and a large extended network of both family and friends. Now therefore, we, the Derry Town Council, thank you for your dedicated and overwhelming contribution to the town of Derry, and we acknowledge your accomplishments. You are truly an inspiration and a friend to everyone you meet. We thank you for your service and your friendship, the Derry Town Council.
Oh, God, thank you for that.
So,
My glory.
so, yeah, so,
Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
so,
Thank you.
I gotta,
Wow. Oh, my glory. That's for an old lady, honey. I love it. Oh, my glory. That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Come sit. Oh, glory be.
I didn't think
Oh.
There you go.
I knew they were getting a chair. I didn't know if it showed up yet.
Oh, yes, I love it. Oh.
Give it a ride.
would her family like to come up and take a picture with Phyllis?
Come on. Eva. Great, great grandchild.
I'm getting out of the background.
Next thing's the Boston cane.
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta shoot for the Boston cane now, Phyllis.
Hey, come on, boys. Chuck, get the boys up here. They're making their way. Come on, boys. Come on, Dad. Come on. And Chuck, the old fireman. Yay. This is beautiful. We'll never get a picture like this again. Right? Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you. Wow, thank you. Eva, do you love it? Thank you. Thank you. I know, isn't that beautiful? Very nice. I love it. Very good. honey, when you get old, you can have all this. Yes, thank you, sweetheart. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. This was wonderful, honey. Thank you very much. Thank you. Glory be.
Next one. Oh, you can run the meeting if you want.
Oh, oh! I could never do as good as you. That was beautiful. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you. She's everybody's mother in town, so one more hand.
Thank you.
So thank you all for indulging me while we did that. It's a monumental moment, 45 years of public service here at the town, so she's worth every bit of it, so thank you for your patience. Moving along, now we're getting to the real business, so,
Oh, okay. I'll
all
be
right.
quiet.
So, the school district building project, we have Assistant Superintendent Joe Crawford and School Board Member Jason McLeod,
Yeah.
the presentation.
That is a tough act to follow. So, thank you
Don't
guys.
take my chair.
I was gonna grab the chair. But comfortable. I like a good rock.
A few minutes to go before you get the chair.
Phyllis, congratulations again. Thank you again from everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you to the rest of the council for allowing us to come tonight. So our goal is to just share a little bit about some of the warrant articles. We shared some information with you folks about one of the warrant articles, which is about a new elementary school. But just because the election is, I think, a week away, we think it's appropriate to make sure everybody understands what's on the warrants for school district stuff. So there are 7 articles. We'll go through them real quickly just to make sure everybody understands what they are. Article 1 is just our elections. There are 2 school board members who are up for 3-year terms. So there are 2 positions. And then there's a position for school district moderator for a 3-year term. That is warrant Article 1. That's probably the easiest one. Warrant Article 2 is regarding capital improvements to school facilities. So the warrant asks to raise and appropriate $36,868,440 through the issuance of bonds. And the purpose of this warrant is to complete major renovations and replacements of existing school facility systems. So many of the systems in our buildings are beyond their useful life, and this warrant aims to make major repairs and replacements to those systems.
So school board recommends the warrant Article 2 in the sense that the funds are necessary to replace, as Joe said, upgrade major systems that are beyond their useful life. Regular maintenance has been occurring and has extended the life of many systems, as we've kind of gone over. The funding will be taken in 3 separate loans, helping to defray the costs because these projects that will take time to accomplish in multiple tranches will help to spread the tax impact out. And really the big thing here is the facility projects that we've outlined on our website are extensive and require long-term coordination and planning. So for this reason, it is necessary that we go to the voters once now in order to ensure that we can effectively plan for all these projects along an appropriate timeline and milestones.
Warrant Article 3 is related to a new elementary school project. So there's some information that we shared with the council in the packet, but just as a quick overview, this article would be to raise and appropriate $71.2 million through the issuance of a bond to build a new elementary school to be located at the site of the existing Derry Village Elementary School. And this school would replace Derry Village and South Range Elementary Schools.
Yeah, and we believe, the students and families of Derry deserve modern and efficient school facilities. The deteriorating conditions of Derry Village and South Range require immediate action at this point. So financing, designing, and constructing a school takes time. Based on the information that we've received from the experts, we believe it'd be inefficient to continue to spend money on these aging facilities. The money could be better spent more directly on students and teachers and education and curriculum. So newly constructed schools, in addition to being designed for today's students and teachers, are more efficient, cost less to operate than older facilities. And we do have the opportunity to potentially receive state building aid to help defray some of the costs of the construction. The last point here, obviously we all know construction costs are increasing every year. Not to say that, it's a guarantee, but each year that we wait is a potential for increasing costs going down the road. There's been some questions around contingencies and why contingencies are at 10%. So it's really based on the recommendations of the industry experts, namely LaValle Brensinger and Jobin, based on the size and the type of the project. So obviously experts in the field of educational facilities and building schools, this was their professional recommendation, and we've accepted that recommendation due to the partnership that we have with both of those outfits.
Moving right along, we have warrant article 4, which is our usual one, and that's the school budget. So the warrant article 4 would be to raise and appropriate $103,484,475 as the school district's 2024-2025 operating budget. This includes all costs and expenses of educating Derry students pre-K through 12th grade. So obviously this includes our pre-K through 8 programming that we run within our school district. This also includes the costs of tuitioning students to Pinkerton Academy, in addition all of the students who attend out-of-district placements, things like that.
So a few of the kind of reluctant to say highlights, but a few of the points related to the budget. So we're planning for a 20% increase in health insurance for the upcoming year. We've also seen a 9.3% increase in transportation costs. And then with fewer students enrolled at Pinkerton, our costs will go up by roughly 5.75%. Also seen an increase of 14.5% in out-of-district tuition costs. So even with all of the increases noted with what Joe discussed, proposed budget includes a modest increase of 3.76%.
Warrant Articles 5 and 6 are related to a collective bargaining agreement with one of the 2 unions of employees that work in our district. So this agreement is with the AFSCME union, and instead of trying to spell it out, I'll just say it's the union that represents our assistants. So teachers' assistants, kindergarten assistants, special education assistants. This agreement would, the cost of this new agreement is estimated to be $199,617 in year 1.
So as Joe noted, these individuals are hourly employees and work directly with student and staff members in the schools. The agreement is for 3 years with raises between 60 cents and $1.25 per hour, depending upon their experience and job assignment. We believe these increases are necessary and well-deserved. We're in a competitive marketplace for hourly employees, and in order to fill positions, we need to provide appropriate compensation.
And Article 7, so I know it's a long list. Article 7 is actually a citizen's petition. So this article was brought forth by one resident with signatures from upwards of 426 registered voters in Derry. The primary purpose of this petition is to reverse the school board's decision to close Derry Elementary School, Derry Village Elementary School, and the restructuring plan, moving students into those 6 schools. So this would be to reverse that. The article is advisory in nature because the decision to close the school rests with the school board, but the article was brought forward by citizens and was discussed at our deliberative session. I believe it was amended slightly at the deliberative session. We want to make sure that everybody knows that that article is also on the warrant. So those are our 7 warrant articles. Don't know if you guys have any questions or want to know any more.
Councilors, questions?
I think if we don't, we'll open the public.
So you might mention it. So is there an increase in the budget for transportation with the new model, the reconfiguration?
So we're still working through what our busing and transportation plan will be with this new model. We've looked at a few different options, and we don't have a finalized plan yet. But we just signed a new contract with the transportation company that we work with. So I just want to make sure I get to the answer. There were increases in that contract based on increased rates. But we actually decreased the number of buses that we have historically been using due to low ridership. So we did a ridership study, and then we reorganized our bus routes really at the high school, middle school, and at the elementary school level to reduce the number of buses. Because not only are they expensive, we need buses for after-school activities. So the more we can, and there's a shortage of drivers. It can be hard to find drivers. So by reducing it, we were able to open up more availability for after-school activities.
And then, so kids who have like services, different services, is that gonna change as far as, so splitting schools, going to a new model, is that gonna increase budget issues there or personnel issues with that?
So if you're talking about like specialized
Yeah,
programs, like categorical programs?
Yeah, like IEPs and all those and whatnot, for the
Yeah.
kids who have those special services from one school now with this new model, is that gonna strain that or have any more budgetary?
So from a service perspective, there won't be a ton of changes in sort of the delivery of service and how we make sure we service students with disabilities. And there are different types of special education services. So there are what sometimes people call resource or mainstream services that happen oftentimes in the classrooms or in small pull-out classroom settings. Much of those are going to remain kind of unchanged. But then we also have what are called categorical programs, and those tend to be programs for students who have very high needs. So to give an example, we have really 3 categorical programs. We have the New England Center for Children, which is a program for children with autism. We have a program called ISLE, which is tends to be a program for students with multiple disabilities. And then we also have a program called Project Me, which is for students with emotional disabilities. So those 3 programs will continue to remain in place. We are moving some of those programs, and as part of this transition, there will be a program at all 3 levels. So there are, all 3 of those programs exist at the elementary, at the intermediate, and then at the middle school level. Currently, we only have 2 levels. We have an elementary and a middle. So we have added an additional Project Me program, an additional, it's difficult because we didn't really add the program because we had multiple classrooms at one level that we're just going to move a classroom to another building. So I'm not sure if that fully makes sense, but.
Yep.
Yeah, but the programming will stay in place.
No?
So looking at the budget presented, obviously the debt services went down significantly. But I noticed that contracted services went up 94%. Can you outline why that went up so much?
Yeah, so most of those contracted services have to do with specialized personnel in the areas of things like speech and language pathology, occupational therapy, physical therapy. Those tend to be extremely difficult positions to fill. In fact, we've had open positions for multiple years. And because those services are required for students in their IEPs, we are required to provide those services. So oftentimes when we don't have staff, school psychologists is another example. We have to contract with agencies to provide those services, and the rates of those agencies have gone up and up and up. So that's the predominant. That's where it comes from. We also contract for some busing when we have to have students go to out-of-district placements. Those out-of-district placements have become more and more expensive, and there is in this region, we're sort of at a capacity where schools and districts like ours have to reach further and further out to find placements, appropriate placements for students. So that means increased costs for transportation. May even mean contracting with other transportation providers who can get us a bus that'll take a student, into Massachusetts or into northern New Hampshire to a facility.
So I'm assuming there's some subcommittees involved in all that work, making sure that, with that extensive an increase, 20-ish%, that there was a lot of homework done to make sure we're, getting the best bang for our buck and things of that nature. Can you maybe comment on some of the activities that were done around that? Because obviously, special needs can go up, but 20+% seems excessive in any one given year. So just, do you have any feedback on?
Yeah,
what was done to help?
Yeah, they're very difficult costs to control because it is an outside service. So we are sometimes at the discretion of market rates. So, you know, I'm fairly new to this position, but I've been impressed with how diligent the Fiscal Advisory Committee process is, in which we provide lots and lots of reports to that committee, which is made up of, you know, members of the community who then have a series of questions, who then, you know, then we come back and we work through it. So there is a lot of committee work to sort of hone down those numbers. In fact, one of the things that we did, we do this every year, and high school can be a really challenging thing to budget for because unlike moving from first grade to second grade or second grade to third grade, we have a pretty good understanding of if we have this many first graders this year, we will have this many second graders next year. That's not really how it works once kids get to high school. So because once high school starts, they kind of go in many different directions. And so we may budget for a certain number of ninth graders that were based on the number of eighth graders we had the year before. However, historically, we lose, we have fewer and fewer children in each grade level as they go up through high school. But we don't know which children will change. And we also see a number of children who did not necessarily have services when they were in kindergarten through eighth grade. When I say services, I mean special education services, who may get referred for a specialized program at the high school level. So what we did this year, and it came out of Fiscal Advisory Committee, was we took a long historical analysis of trends of, so what is the percent retention rate of a number of students at the high school level? So if we had 100 students in a grade level and the next year we only had 90 in that grade level, which by the way, we have way more than that, just trying to use round numbers, we know that we can expect in any given year somewhere in the range of a 10% loss. So instead of budgeting using a cohort model where we were saying, we're promoting every child, we took a long look at historical trends, and then we reduced the number of students that we were budgeting for at Pinkerton Academy and in some of those specialized programs. So that's kind of an example of a way we looked at it.
One thing to add to the contracted services is Joe mentioned it, but it's required, right? Not optional. So you're kind of at the mercy of, we have to and are happy to provide the services for the students, but you kind of have to go the avenue that's available, right? Obviously, ideal priority one would be to have the staff on the payroll, right? But when you don't have it, you still have to provide the service to the individual, so.
I think Brian, I have other ones, but I'll let Brian go.
Councilor Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at the pages that I have in my sheet here, the cost and value page. Are you familiar with what you've got there in front of you? And I'm trying to get a grasp on, number one, project costs. It says total project cost. Obviously, we know it's the 72 million or 71 point, whatever that number is, 71.2 million. But then it says highest year, and it just gives you $1 per thousand, 20-year bond at X. What's that information? It's not filled in here.
Okay. So that information, I apologize, that's probably an out-of-date document, but there's an updated document. I apologize, it's up on our website.
Yeah, this is probably like the beginning page that you need to fill in, but I don't have that, so.
Okay. So you're looking for the highest tax impact year?
Yeah, 20-year bond at X. Do you know
Okay.
what that number is?
You're looking for the tax rate, or are you looking for the interest
Well,
rate?
yeah, do you have the sheet, Joe?
I don't have it with me right now. I've got it online. I can pull it up if you need me to. I know that. Yep. Okay.
I'm just trying to figure those numbers out on one. Is it one there?
Yep. Do you want me to go look up the
So we
bond?
know that the total school is 71.2 million, correct?
Correct.
And the school board is trying to get state aid, obviously,
Correct.
to help pay for some of that cost. If they don't get state aid, that's, the $71.2 million is enough to build the school without state aid?
Correct.
Okay, that's number one. And then if you could, I don't know if you know those numbers on one outside of the total cost. What's the bond, the highest per thousand? Do you know that?
I don't have it memorized, but I can look
Okay.
it up for you.
$1.23.
Oh,
So
there you go.
$1.23 per thousand of, and when I say thousand, I'm talking about the assessed value of your home in Derry, correct? So the highest would be $1.23. Do you know what the lowest would be?
First year, 37 cents.
Okay, so year one,
37 cents in year one, which is tax year 2026.
all right, so,
Add 86 cents in tax year number two,
okay, so
which
we.
brings you to $1.20.
Right. So we all know in year one, I
Three.
mean, I've been around long enough, Jim and a few of us have been along for a long while, where obviously year one is an interest only. And then it actually goes with principal and interest, correct? That's why the 37 cents is just for year one.
Yep.
Then from that point, the next 19 years, is it $1.23?
No.
Okay, so it weans down, or?
Yes.
Okay,
School bonding is different than town bonding. We do a mortgage rate calculation.
yeah,
The school bond peaks, and then it goes down approximately 2 to 3 cents a year. It's in their budget. It's in the district budget that I have right here.
okay.
And it levels off somewhere out about year 15 or so for a little while, and it does a step
Okay.
function down and then levels off again.
And is it safe to say that the scale that Councilor McEachern has is based on a fixed number interest rate?
No, I know.
And in tranche 2 and 3, we don't know what that interest rate's gonna be.
Two separate things, Councilman Cherichello. So
I'm sorry, yeah, there's not a
tranche
tranche, that's
3
right.
would relate to warrant Article 2 for the
Yeah,
capital
yeah, I'm
improvements.
mixing them up. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
So the bond for the school, the current rates now is what Jane went for.
Yep.
They won't know the final rates until the bond banks put them out in July,
Okay.
but it's been pretty consistent.
Do you know what what the rough number would be?
It was 4%.
4.
Yeah, I think that's what she used.
And so what's he's holding from the budget, everything's on the website as well. So on the
Yeah.
SAU 10 website, under forward bound, all of the documents, everything is spelled out,
Okay.
very clear.
And correct me if I'm wrong on the plan, because I watched parts of it, and some parts I didn't watch. So is the plan, Derry Village gets closed? We already know that. That's been decided, correct?
That's been decided, that's correct.
If a new school comes online, you're going to close another elementary school.
That's correct.
So 2 elementary schools get closed.
The new school
one
would
goes in.
replace 2 aging facilities, 2 buildings.
And the decision hasn't been made which school yet, elementary school. If the new school gets passed, do you know which one?
The plan would be South Range.
South Range.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. That's what I have for now.
Before you go to you.
Okay,
So,
no problem.
to that point, so I've gotten some calls from the neighbors in the South Range area. So theoretically, if the school were to be closed, some people are asking me if it's going to be a park. Just, I want to make it clear here, the town has no intentions of buying that property, tearing it down, making it a park with it. So I don't know where that's coming from or not, but I just want to, for those who are calling, asking about it, that's news to me. So I just want to nip that right here. So let me make that
And
clear.
that has been discussed with several of us.
So I just want to get, we're on the same page, that's all. Councilman McGurk, you have more
We're
questions?
aligned.
Yeah.
We're aligned.
We're aligned. So I know there were multiple options that you folks looked at. And, you know, you guys did all your due diligence. And for full disclosure, I am a major fan of neighborhood schooling. And I know you had $200 million proposals.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if we could ensure a little bit more
Sorry.
proximity to
So I
the,
know you have $200 million proposals, or roughly 100, right? There's the now 108 million, which is 71.2, and 36.8. The 36.8 would then be used to do repairs on East Derry, Barker, Grinnell, Hood, and West Running Brook.
There is money accounted for the South Range property as a contingency should the school not pass.
Okay. I'm just going to use the model, right?
Yep.
Assuming everything passes, that $36.8 million would be used for the balance of the schools.
That's correct.
That roughly works out to $7.7 million a school, roughly. Now, I'm not saying every school has exactly the same types of needs, but we would have one really good school and then other schools that are being brought up to some standard. Your other plan, again, full disclosure, is more preferential to me personally, is $100 million in total for the upgrade of East Derry, Barker, Grinnell, South, Hood, and West. So South Range is back in the picture. That then assumed that we didn't go forward with the 70 million. Taking the $100 million and dividing that now by 6 schools works out to $16.6 million a school. assuming, as I've heard, and I've been to multiple meetings, as you guys know, I guess I've heard estimates that South Range would be about 35 million to fix South Range if, in fact, the 70 doesn't pass. You need a big chunk of change to fix that. If you deduct 35 million from 100, you're left with 65 million now to fix those same 5 schools that you're telling me it takes 36.8. It would appear there's $35 million missing to bring all the schools up, and that when all this is done at 108 million, probably 8 or 9 years down the road, somebody's coming back for another 35 million. Based on a pure mathematical analysis.
Understood.
I took 35 million, fixed South Range, nice. I'm left with 60 some odd million. You're only asking for 36 million right now. At some point, to bring all of those schools up to the exact same standard, you're gonna need to spend more money.
Like
I
new
haven't heard
renovations,
anybody say that to me yet.
like new renovations in all the buildings, you're probably looking at $150 million. The capital improvement plan over 3 phases addresses the most critical needs in the buildings, right? With some upgrades there. We're not proposing like new renovations in all the existing buildings because, to your point, we're not going to ask for $200 million, right? The idea is to build a new school to replace 2 buildings, quite frankly, that are well past their useful life, right? Well past. If the council hasn't reviewed the LaValle Brensinger report, I would urge you to take a look. It's a 1,000-page document that outlines every little detail in all of the buildings. Bathrooms that have doors that are this big, wheelchairs can't get in. There's not enough outlets in the buildings. I mean, carpeting is coming up. The buildings are old, right? I think we can all agree on that. And I understand where you're coming from. This addresses the most critical needs, with phase 1 being priority. Roofs, which we have leaks, right? The facilities team, Jeremy and his team do a great job. There's leaks in the roofs. You're talking about the banding at West Running Brook, what should have been granite, but at some point somebody made a cut, which we've seen obviously over many, many years, cut here, cut there, and now you're left with what we have today. The banding is pushing out from the building, right? That is a critical need, right? So it addresses some of these big items. These are big ticket items, right? You're talking $2-3 million for some of these projects. And then it starts to address some of the major needs that have been pushed off as it relates to some of the facilities and systems, HVAC units and other such things, alarms, fire alarms. We've got a pretty detailed report as to what is happening in each phase. Yep. This puts us out through 7 years of projects, which addresses, again, a lot of the structural and the integrity issues in the buildings. We're not going to get to a point where we're doing like new renovations in these buildings, right? Because that's something that we've contracted with to look at a long-term strategic plan. We've hired a firm to help us with a long-term strategic plan. What you're saying, Councilman McEachern, beyond that 7 years, that 9 to 10 years, I can't sit here and say we will or will not come back. What we're trying to do is shore up the buildings that we have today to prevent where we are now in 10 or 15 years, right? Because listen, if we went back in time and we were accounting for these things and accruing for these things and putting money into the facility, significant investments, a few million each year, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Yeah, and I'm not disputing any of that, what you said, and I've read a vast majority of the report. My point is, the option you're going for now is 7.7 million a school. The other option's 16.6. So you're doing something different in both options. And if I take 100 million, it's simple math. I take 100 million, I take 35 million away, and I totally renovate South Range. And these are numbers that I've heard at your meetings.
Yep.
That leaves me $65 million. So at some point, to get the remaining schools that aren't up to snuff relative to the new one, you're gonna have to come back for another $30 million. Because you just said we're fixing major structural problems. I want to see all the kids in Derry get the same educational opportunity, regardless of what building they're going in. The teachers are outstanding. I think they're all going to get taught the same way, but they're not going to have the same facilities, in my opinion, under the option you're going for, unless you come back at some point for another $30-something million relative to the $100 million of literally updating every school.
Agreed. Listen, we're going to need
That's
more.
all I'm
and
that's
schools
all-
are going to
that's
need
all
more
I'm
money
saying.
at some point. All I can say is this is why we've contracted with a strategic planning firm, right, to help long-range planning.
All right.
Again, we can't turn back the hands of time. What we're trying to do is implement behaviors that help us to plan long-term and plan strategically for the future. Right? So the 35 million, we don't believe, based on what the experts say, that investing $35 million is fiscally responsible into South Range. We
Understood.
don't believe that. The board does not believe that.
Understood.
So you take off. And if you add Derry Village, you're talking 70 to $80 million for both of those.
But
That
Derry
school's
Village wasn't
closed.
in the $100
Right.
million
I'm
program.
I'm using, to your point, square numbers, round numbers, right? So the three phases allow us to address a lot of the big things.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and say that we're not going to come back or no one's going to come back in the future, right? The strategic plan is going to help us to hopefully start to budget these things in future years as part of the general fund. So we're not, in a perfect world, we would have been planning for all this and wouldn't have to go to bonds, right? We would have been putting $2 or $3 million into the schools every
Well, the
year.
only difference to what we're saying is I'm saying you're going to be coming back because your two plans don't match. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
You're legitimately going to come back because $16.6 million doesn't equal 7.7, and that's fine. And that's okay. I got no problem with that. But the remaining schools need a lot more work to them.
Understood. But when we think about long-term in a strategic plan,
Okay.
we have to understand the buildings don't last forever, right? Schools don't last forever. Buildings don't last forever. Your cars don't last forever. You have 500,000 miles on an old Honda Accord. You're not putting 10 grand into it, 15 grand into it. We need to get these buildings to a point where they're whole, back to square, and then start to think about what does 10, 15, 20 years down the road look like. The importance of the new building is it solves a big chunk of that problem, right? Because now we have a PM plan, we have preventative maintenance, we can invest, we can maintain the building. And I know a lot of people like to say the school board generally hasn't maintained. I can assure you, as long as I sit on the board, we will work to maintain the buildings, right? That's part of the planning and that's part of what a long-term strategic plan looks like. The investment that hopefully the taxpayers of Derry see, the value there, we have a plan in place to ensure that that money is protected and the investment will be protected.
So your view is the long-range plan is going to lay all this out, and we'll see a longer-term view then?
What we're asking for now, sort of outside of the new school, really kind of sets us up in that 5 to 10 year range, right? The three phases will go over 7 years. You can't complete all these projects.
Right.
Part of the reason why we're doing it in three tranches and three phases, because it'd be almost impossible for a school district to manage almost $40 million in projects. It really would be, even over the course of 1, 2, or 3 years. You're talking extensive projects. There's going to be relationships built. We'll be hiring firms that hopefully will have good relationships and be able to build out a better plan moving forward to keep these, because listen, I think we can all agree we're in a pretty sticky and ugly spot, right? And that's from a long time of not doing what needs to be done in terms of significant capital investment. These guys and girls, they're working on a pretty shoestring budget for a district of our size.
Thank you.
So it's a roundabout way, Councilman,
no.
to answer the question, but
No.
I'd be lying if I said this is the plan in 10 years, right? A lot
No.
can change.
No, and I appreciate the fact that you hired a long-term strategic plan to look at that. And that's the right thing to do. Absolutely, to see where it ends up. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Student capacity, what's the student capacity of this new building?
So it's in the range of about 600 students, so that would be at full capacity. So it's about similar to the size of Ernest P. Barca School. So right now there are about 545, 550 students at Barca. I think it has a capacity of a little over 600. So this building is about the same.
And then, and historically, like, what's the student enrollment look like now as opposed to last 5 years, 3 to 5 years? Where do we stand?
So we've been on a pretty steady decline in student enrollment over the last 20 years. So to put it in perspective, When Barco was built in 2004, we had more than 4,000 students in our district in grades 1 through 8. We did not have public kindergarten in 2004. Since then, we've added public kindergarten and we've lost 1,000 students in our K to 8 enrollment. So we currently have less than 3,000 students enrolled K to 8. So that is obviously, you didn't really ask that, but maybe it's connected to some people have asked why has the board decided to close the school? And I know that it's been discussed for a long period of time, but decreasing enrollment is part of it. Now, you didn't ask this question, but I think it's related, which is we have also contracted to do an enrollment study, as we do often with demographics companies. And so we will have a presentation, I believe, on March 26th at our board meeting to do a full presentation on the most recent 10-year projection. But sneak peek look at that is very little change is projected over the next 10 years in enrollment. Probably flatlining in the area of about 3,000 students. Beyond 10 years, the demographers say there's really it's a crystal ball at that point because you don't have enough data to make 20-year enrollment projections.
The 4,000 was what, 20 years ago, you said?
Yeah, about 20 years ago, we were a little over 4,000 students. And at that time, Gilbert H. Hood had just under 1,000 students, and West Running Brook was, I think, 850 students. Yeah, so we were quite a bit bigger 20 years ago.
That's the day of the portables, and both my daughters in their 30s were in the school system when the school system was busting at the seams.
Yeah.
So with the new school model, obviously you're moving the kids around. Have you done I'm sure you did your due diligence to make sure there's enough physical space for the kids when you do, I'm gonna screw this up, 7 and 8 in one school and 5 and 6 in the other? Did I get that right? And I'm not sure which one goes where.
Yeah, that's okay. So
I apologize.
Gilbert H. Hood right now will be our 7-8 school, and we're anticipating just under 700 students there next year. And West Running Brook would be our 5-6 school. We're anticipating just under 650 students there.
And Gilbert H. Hood still has, is it the Next Charter School? Am I getting that name right?
Yeah, so Next Charter School rents the old tech ed or wood shop space in the basement, and the Derry Early Education Program, otherwise known as DEEP, which is a preschool program, is also out of Gilbert H. Hood.
So obviously there's enough room for everybody, left, right, backwards, forwards.
Yeah, Hood is by far our largest building, classrooms size-wise, numbers of classrooms. But yeah, so we have run some different scenarios. We've actually looked at, so the school board has, a lot of people ask about building capacity, and building capacity, I don't want to talk too much about this if the fire department's still here, but there's rules about building capacity that have to do with the fire department, right? I'm sure the police department might have also other rules. When it comes to schools, in terms of service delivery, we also look at class size. So the school board in Derry has class size goals for each grade level. So for instance, kindergarten, the Derry school class size goal is 18. So our goal is to keep all of our kindergarten classrooms at 18 or fewer students. And they have numbers at each grade level. Last year, in a means to cut and save money, the school board increased their class size goals by 1 student in grades 1 through 8. I don't think we touched kindergarten. And this year, when we did the projections, we actually we reverted back to the slightly smaller class size goals because we recognized that the board made that decision in 1 year to try to save some money, reduce costs. But yeah, so we've looked at class sizes.
So when you mention class size, where do we stand relative to the state standards?
Well below the state standards. So I believe state guidelines, I don't have them in front of me, but I know at the I believe it's either 5 through 8 or 6 through 8, it's at 30. And so for us, I think we're at 25. And we're below the state guidelines in every grade level.
Okay.
Yeah. At least 1 through 8. I'm not sure what the kindergarten state rule is, but.
Anything else?
No, go ahead, sorry.
So since you mentioned the fire department, so with the TRC, with new construction and things like that, the fire department has a TRC and they sign on to things, whatever. So on that, are they signed off on it, or is that just like a community engagement?
Has the fire department signed off on the site map?
So on this, are they reviewed it? Is that why or is that a community engagement tool on this poster?
It's the site layout would be preliminary. So full design, we'd wait until approval, and then obviously that would go, once it's
No, I
approved,
mean,
it would
like-
go into the permitting stage anyway.
I'm just like looking at the poster, so I just didn't know if they've kind of gone along with the
Oh, because there's a
the picture, so I
firefighter
just-
in there?
I just
In the
want to.
picture? Oh,
Is that because they signed off on it, or is it because is it a
no,
community
we
engagement?
didn't collaborate with the fire department at all.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, looks like they're giving a thumbs up.
Yeah. Anyone else? Question?
Did you want to open up to the
Council Chair
public?
Cello, do you have anything?
Not right now.
Want to open the public?
Does anyone here have any questions that they'd like to
Not after
come up and
that.
ask?
We don't have a police resource officer in either of the two middle schools, do we?
We do, we were really,
Okay.
you guys want to answer?
Sorry, the chief's here. Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah,
So-
we're fortunate. Just in January, we had a new school resource officer.
So would you plan on having the officer in 7 and 8 or 5 and 6? Well, we haven't discussed that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I
Still
think,
could be open.
I think we'd be open for discussion if the police department also wanted to talk about it, but from our perspective, she's been an incredibly positive asset in the buildings. I think having her probably home base in 7-8 makes sense, but working with our 5-6 students too.
I mean, just the sensitivity of those middle school years, right? Where, you need that interaction possibly in that go-to source if something, funky happens. And those tend to be the, I would think more the 6, 7, and 8, but it's 5, 6, 7, 8 now. But I would think those are the years that are a little more, touchy for the kids, right?
I can attest that middle school is definitely spicy.
You have a middle school, okay.
Yes.
But I would say, I mean, so I've been in the district now for 24 years, and I did a lot of my beginning work at Gilbert H. Hood. I think that just because sometimes I think middle school kids get a bad rap. I think this generation of kids is better behaved than my generation, and better behaved than when I started. To be honest, these kids are really wonderful. They're dealing with different challenges now, but when I first started at Gilbert H. Hood, it was a little bit rougher. And there's pros and cons to everything, but I think these kids are by and large really great kids.
Okay, glad to hear the officers helping out then. That's great. Thank you.
All right. Anything else before we wrap it up?
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, and you guys all know this because I went to deliberative session and stuff. When we talk about the contingency, I had a difference of opinion on contingency only because I'm looking at what the town's doing on the fire side, the building that we've got and the contingency we have there, but also I'm building at the county level as well. We're building a $77 million building there. Same percentage of contingency. I brought it up. I still don't understand how your architects are supporting 10 and 11% respectively on both warrants. That was my bone of contention was you have a little bit too much money there. And I guess the answer was, well, if we've got extra money, it'll go towards the bond is what the response was. So if anything, that's the issue that I had on it.
Yeah, and I remember from the deliberative, I mean, so we've taken the advice from LaValle Brensinger. Obviously, this is their wheelhouse. They build schools, design schools, I should say.
Right.
And Jobin, who is also general contractor who would build the buildings. This is the recommendation based on the experts from previous projects in the area. And to your point, anything that's over, right, or anything left over from contingency is paid directly back into the note.
Right. And
So here's the thing: if we came up 3 million short, and we're like, where do we get 3 million? Now we're going to have to go back to the voters, or we have to take it in the general fund. It makes sense to have a what they believe to be a healthy contingency, and not have to come back and ask for more money if there's a shortfall.
Right.
It can just go directly back to pay the bond.
right. And so where I'm coming from is the standpoint of housing. And right now, the average home in Derry is $500,000. We've reached that level. Taxes are, on average, over $10,000. So we're talking about, well, if we have extra money, my point is there's a couple of categories of people in this town specifically fixed income people and the younger generation can't afford to live here. And I'm just concerned that it's just going to get tougher. And I know it's not your fault or anything, or the school board's fault. As I pointed out, this is a problem that's been going on for a while. I don't point the finger at any of the current school board, but my concern is those categories of people are going to have a really hard time. Specifically, the people that have been here for years and years and years on fixed income, and they're living off Social Security, you know, and they're getting a cost of living raise of whatever the inflation rate is. So I'm concerned about that. And as we talk about the children population actually going down, and I think in the future you're going to see it going down. And we're not the only. I mean, all of the United States, that China is in the same situation, Russia's in the same situation. Overall population's going down. So that's the concern that I had. I didn't want you to think that I went to deliberative session to be a pain in the butt. But somebody needed to speak for those people. So I just wanted to point that out. So anywhere I could save any money, like I had mentioned, I raised the fact that I wanted to have a 5% contingency instead of a 10 and 11. Okay, because I thought that was reasonable, but I wanted you to know that, so.
And I appreciate the context. It is reasonable to ask, but again, if we went with a 5 to knock off a few million, but then in fact needed it, now we're kind of in a pickle, right? If don't need it, it goes directly back towards the bond. And like you, I'm also concerned. I'm a homeowner in town as well. I see my bill. It's, you know, no one wants it. But I also like to see the services and infrastructure, right? If I'm paying 10,000 plus in taxes, I like to see paved roads, no potholes, and well-kept sidewalks, and new fire stations. I support it, right? That's what I want to see my tax dollars going towards. I don't want to see buildings that have leaking roofs and the banding falling off and envelopes falling off. My kid goes to the school. My neighbors' kids go to the school. My neighbors have young kids. They're going to be going to the schools. My job is to make sure that we're providing the environment and allowing the administration the ability to provide a top quality education in the classroom in a solid building.
And I can respect that. My thinking is, you mentioned roads, police, and fire. This town has been under a tax cap since 1993. And you see the quality of the services that we have, okay? That's the only thing I'm saying. And I had mentioned that in what candidates night about, you know, can you do a self-imposed tax cap? Now, I know someone mentioned it was at 3.68% or whatever that was. But I was looking at that number. There was a bond payment from, I believe, Barker School that was $715,000 that you guys put towards the operations side of things. I would have never done that. So to me, that number is a little bit artificially low, okay? And I don't know if it's necessarily as low as it should have been, but my point being is things can get done, prioritize, and, you know, I wasn't a big fan of the tranche system, the $36 million, and I know that discussion came up as well. You mentioned, well, we have to come back to the taxpayers. Yes, I want you to come back to the taxpayers. Take the $14 million. You said that you can't do all the repairs at once anyway. Do the $14 million. Fix whatever you need to fix for the first 2 years. That'll give the taxpayers a little bit of a break. Then come back. I know you don't want to come back, but I think that would have been the way that I would have actually proposed that, in all honesty.
Yeah, listen, there's obviously many ways to skin a cat. I mean, a couple things, when you're looking at the budget, also have to look at, you know, what is the biggest spends? Obviously, payroll and benefits. We're budgeting more than 20%, $1.2 million increase in health insurance alone. The administration's gone out, looked at other options. Things seem to be in the same ballpark. That's out of our control. We have to provide benefits, right? That's part of the gig. The 3 phases, one thing you have to keep in mind, and if you haven't looked at the project plan, things are going to be happening in parallel and concurrently. So when you're planning, and I'm sure you know, when you're planning projects of this magnitude in extent, project planning happens well in advance of when shovels hit the dirt, right? So in order for us to do that, deposits, you're paying material, whatever contractors are charging, you're paying materials, you're paying a portion of the labor, et cetera. The funds need to be available in order to have tight project planning to ensure that we're hitting where we want to hit as it relates to the milestones and as it relates to the project plans. So the work needs to be done. We've identified that. And ultimately, right, and the beauty of it is the taxpayers are going to decide, right, in a week, how they want to proceed with the buildings. This is just what we believe to be the best plan. We've brought what we believe to be the best plan forward, again, for short-term, medium-term, and long-term. We've hired a strategic plan to help us further out, 10 years and beyond. It's, nothing's perfect, right? And again, we can't turn back the hands of time. I wish we could. But we have to look at how do we do things a little bit differently? Because if we wait another 10 years, we're going to be so much worse than we are today, right? The number that Councilman McEachern put out, 105, 150, it's significantly worse. And then you're talking, is there catastrophic failure in any of the systems or any of the buildings, right? So outside of potential issues with students and safety and teachers and folks in the buildings, now you're talking emergency repairs, emergency things. As we all know, a tree falls on your house, it costs you double, triple, because it happens on a Saturday night, than it would have cost if you called on a Monday morning and said, hey, when can I get on your calendar, right? That's just the reality of it. So what we're trying to do is plan, and I get it. This is a lot to digest. It's a lot to look at. We are just trying to have a plan, be strategic, be thoughtful, be intentional with how we proceed to really course correct and right the ship here. And that's all we can do as a board and as an administration is just bring this forward and allow the town to decide the path they want to go on.
Is he done?
Yeah.
Oh,
Councilor Granessi.
thank you. A couple questions. In regards to warrant Article 7, that was that petition, 426 people signed. I know it says here is advisory in nature, but if that passes, are you guys going to revisit that, or are you just going to say, we're not going to do anything with it?
Good question. It's non-binding. I guess we'll have to see on the 26th what comes out of that meeting and how the vote happens on the 12th and see, A, where the vote lands, right? And then on the 26th, when the new board sits for the first time, I'm sure that'll be a discussion if that warrant passes.
In your contingency plan in case warrant Article 3 fails on the new school?
That's where we have the capital improvements, and that's why we've allotted money for South Range.
Okay.
So beyond that, we've hired the strategic planning firm. If the new school doesn't pass next week, obviously you have to look at by what margin, right, to understand. And the next board is going to have to decide how they want to proceed with that. And then that would be part of, obviously, the long-term planning. Where do we go?
All right, my other question, one more question. My other question is, I don't blame the current board. I know a few of you people are new on the board for the past, from not taking care of the buildings. You know, the old syndrome, if there's a broken window, fix the window, because then it becomes 2-3 windows broken. So my fear is that you said something to the effect that the buildings have not been maintained in the past. I'm not blaming the current board. So my fear is they build a new school, what's going to happen in 10 to 15 years if it's not maintained? And what would be in place to make sure that when boards change, the school board changes in the future, that they will take care of the new building if it does pass?
It's a great question. I didn't say the buildings hadn't been maintained. Jeremy and team do a great job with the budget they have. Buildings are safe, repairs happen, things are fixed, things are taken care of. We haven't made significant capital investment into the buildings.
Okay.
That's where we're trying to make this thing whole. As I mentioned earlier, preventative maintenance plan, Jeremy's building this in, it's part of it, right? When are we changing belts? When are we changing screws? When are we servicing rooftop units? The list goes on, right? This warrant Article 2 gets us whole to a point where they're literally not putting, I shouldn't say literally, but duct taping to keep this thing running, right? If you read those reports, many of these systems are well past their life. Honestly, we all should be congratulating them for keeping these things going as long as they have. Because we could have already been in a situation where rooftop units are down, there's no heat, hot water heaters, the district has made investments where they can and where they saw fit, But the facilities team has done an outstanding job of keeping this thing moving, right? So once we get whole and they're not just scrambling to try to put out fires, so to speak, or, you know, literally put their thumb in a hole that's spraying water out, we will ensure, right? The board will ensure that there's a preventative maintenance plan. That's also part of a long-term strategic plan. How do we continue to make small incremental investments and plan and accrue and budget each year for facilities spends so we have a little bit of money tucked away, so it's not a bond. Now we have to come to the town every time, right?
Okay, thank you.
So a lot of us have operations experience, facilities experience. This is what we do in our day jobs. We manage these types of things, and it's, you know, I know we take a lot of credit, flack, I should say, for not focusing on curriculum in these things, and I call shenanigans on that, because I think all of us, especially with having kids in schools, obviously we care about the quality of education that our kids are receiving. But these are the things we're focused on in addition to that, because this is what we do, right? This is where we think or we thought we could add value to the board, and where we could help, right, with managing projects and managing these things to dig out of the hole, get level, and then put us on a good footing so we can move forward in a productive and a normal operating environment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So again, on the new plan, just a final series of thoughts here. When I looked at your numbers, and you know, I've got your budget book, this one, and I've had conversations with obviously each one of you guys, as you're well aware. I noticed we're closing Derry Village. There doesn't appear to be any cost savings in closing the school budget-wise. Because back in February 14th of '23, you guys did a PowerPoint presentation that outlined a whole series of savings by closing Derry Village. And the net number was $1.5 to $2 million would be saved. But then I have your budget here, and I've gone through it, and there are no positions, I gotta be careful. There were no net positions eliminated. Things moved, and people moved, but net, there's no savings by closing Derry Village.
So we did decrease positions. Maybe you're just talking about teacher positions?
No, I'm looking, because I have the numbers here. For example, the administration in Derry, everything in here in Derry Village, with the exception of 3 or 4 things, was zeroed out. And I've already had a chat with Jane to point out a couple of issues that I found in the budget that weren't zeroed out. And there's another one that was mistitled, which is fine. These things happen. It's an extensive budget. Your budget's the same as ours. It's a nice, big, fat, 3-inch thick budget. So I get it. We miss stuff up here too. But I noticed in all the positions, administration, groundskeeping, all these things was zeroed out. But when I go look at the numbers, while Derry Village was zeroed out, equivalent numbers and then some, because obviously people get raises, were all moved into other schools. So it didn't appear that any of those positions excuse me, were eliminated, and I actually took the challenge of find $700,000. I actually found $961,779 that I could cut and not eliminate a single teacher. Now, that doesn't mean positions aren't eliminated, let me be clear. But I looked at positions that were specific to the facility of Derry Village and not specific to the education of the kids.
So
I went back and I looked at those, and they all moved to other places in the district.
So a couple things. The savings that were realized have been reinvested back into education, math specialists, some of these other positions. And I'll let Joe, he's the expert, but the number of students haven't changed, right? So
Understood.
When you think about head count, students haven't changed, still have to provide the same level of service, classrooms, operate in the classroom size. So that hasn't changed. You also have to factor in, as the total, the operating costs. And the big number there that isn't really part of that is we're not making any investment into Derry Village, right? So even if you think of, call it baseline with the envelope and the roof, you're probably still roughly $5-6 million minimum. And if we want to circle all the way back to like new renovations or even significant, like new renovations, just like South Range, 35 or 40 million, anything significant is going to be in that 10, 12, $15 million range. So that number doesn't get floated around because it's kind of hypothetical, but that's like it's an opportunity cost that goes the other way because it completely comes off the books. So when you think about savings, you have to factor that in. It might not reflect directly on the bottom line of the budget, but that number, if we didn't close Derry Village, that number still comes back into play, not for the general fund, but in some capacity in warrant article number 2.
But we are closing Derry Village, and there's no recognized cost savings at all. And to Brian's point on contingency, and you gave a fine answer, I got no issue, but when you're trying to pass something, people want to see their savings, they're getting something. And the appearance is the budget just moved. I mean, you took the principal and vice principal and you're just calling them something else, which may or may not be needed. I'm not going to dispute that fact, but the money moved. You took the custodians and just put them in other buildings. The other buildings didn't expand, they didn't grow.
They'll grow by student
But there's
body.
$320,000 in that line item that rearranged. You know, a nurse got moved to another school, and again, I don't want to see people get laid off, right? That's not the point here. But when you close a facility, those things to me that are dedicated to the facility itself, they go away.
But it's not always personnel, Councilman. You think about operating costs, heat, hot water,
And
operating the building.
And that's all been zeroed out in here. I'm just going by those pure things I just talked about.
Understood.
It comes to $900,000. The other thing I noticed in the budget, and I had it confirmed, the Barker bond that Brian mentioned was 1.2 and change, of which $462,659 was state funding, which therefore leaves you $737,341 that, and I talked to you about this, that in my opinion should have gone towards the bond that you were looking for, which would have netted the new bonds to not cost the taxpayer anything. What you've done with that $700,000 is rolled it into your operating budget, and you used the number earlier of 3.76%. You rolled the 737 into the budget, so your actual budget increase is 4.4%. Because you took something that was dedicated to a bond, and now you're putting it into operating, which is something that I enforced in here back when we did the growth management ordinance, that every time a bond came due, you would exercise a new bond and keep the bonded indebtedness of the town as consistent as you could, which I had quite an argument with Chief Garone at one point because he needed something on the police station, and I told him he's waiting 2 years until I paid off another bond. And I actually invested, and I know we've talked about this, I actually invested in the police station what you would consider sunk money, just to kind of keep it going for a couple of years until I could get him, I think it was like a little over $1 million to do the expansion, Chief Yoli. But that was the timing of it, to keep things consistent. So I must admit, you guys did the plan, you did your due diligence, you came up with a plan. I'm certainly not going to argue the level of work you guys put in, and I certainly don't want to come across that I don't appreciate all the work you do. I know what you do, we do it up here. My personal preference on these things is to level those things off, and we had these discussions outside of this building, that when you're trying to sell something to the public, you got to give them something. And giving them something would have been, we're replacing one bond with another, there's no tax impact. What was done here was you took the tax impact and put it into operating. And that's clear in the budget, and I've had that confirmed. That's just a personal piece of feedback. I would have preferred you came out and sold your $36 million bond and say, your tax impact is negligible because we paid off Barker and now we're doing the improvement bond. And I think you would have had a lot easier time passing the budget if you would have done that. Personal opinion only. I appreciate
Thank
what you
you.
did. I know how hard you guys worked on it because I've been to a lot of your meetings. And personally, you guys have been great to me, giving me information and, you know, putting up with my numbers and everything. And I certainly appreciate that.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
anything
you.
All right.
Appreciate the audience.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good night.
Thank you.
Congrats again, Phyllis.
Good luck on Tuesday, guys.
Thank you. See you guys there.
All right.
So, actually, Mr. Chairman, before you go on, I know, you know, a lot of people know that I like to have fun with numbers and do things and have all kinds of fun things to do in my limited spare time. But I actually sent a presentation to our administrator with regards to all these projects, and I understand, you know, we're coming forward with the school budget and the state and everything. So I ran some calculations for people so they could actually see what's gonna happen in the town of Derry over the next 8 years, in total. So as Brian has alluded to and everybody up here, the town is under a tax cap. So I worked with the administration and the town, where you see the word current, that $1.63 is what everybody saw in your tax bill this year. The following years, 2025, are what we're gonna talk about in this council in the next couple months, and so on and so forth for everybody, and I'll just go across it. So if you look across at the town number, this is the maximum increase the town of Derry would have on your tax bill for the next 8 years. That is based on a consumer price index increase of 2.5%. In discussions with Dave Karen, we feel that that's probably gonna be about the average consumer price increase for the next several years. So you can see that the maximum the tax rate would be is anywhere from 15 to 18 cents to the town portion of your budget. The next is the basic school budget, between $1 and $1.05. The $1.05 is in this year's budget. So I just used a straight line of $1 every year, which, in talking with some of the school board members, seemed to be fairly consistent. Then I added in the $71.2 million bond and the $36 million bond if they both pass. You will notice in 2025, 37-cent tax increase for one bond, 8 cents for the other. Then it jumps up another 86 cents and 21 cents respectfully. And then you see the minuses. The minuses are because the way the school does their bonding, you actually decrease over time till you get level set. And as Councilor Chericello pointed out, the other increases on the $36 million bond are the issuance of the next two bonds. This was done based on what was in the school budget. So I took it directly from the school's report. The next line item is state education funding. You'll notice that nets out at all zeros. The reason that that's there is we don't know what's gonna happen. Everybody understands that there's a lawsuit that just got won, that the state doesn't fund adequately education. We hear that even at the school board meetings. But you have to be careful here. I got $50 in my right pocket, I got $50 in my left pocket, right? It's just what pocket you're gonna take my $50 out of. So I'm not even sure what's gonna happen with that. If, for example, the state is forced to double what they currently give, then that line item will go up, and subsequently you should see the dollar go down. One of the things I've talked to multiple legislators about, and I will be putting this forward as legislation myself, with the help of obviously the local legislation delegation, I would like to see language put in to anything the state files with education funding, that there is an equal and equivalent reduction in local property taxes to any change in state education funding. So if, for example, you get 3,000, how much is $3,000 a student now, about?
Yeah, full, yeah.
So if it's 3,000 now and it goes to 6, I want to see an equivalent drop in the local property taxes. And I am asking the legislative delegation, and I've already talked to our senator and gubernatorial candidates, that I want to see that if that passes and we double or triple, whatever you do, an exact equal equivalent reduction in the local property taxes. It is something we do with our tax cap right now. You cannot play with that number on the rate. When you do a revaluation and you get more businesses in town, there's all kinds of mathematical gymnastics you can do. In our charter, you cannot do that. It has to be a zero-sum game. Kind of follow the advice of Teddy Roosevelt, trust but verify. I want it forced in there that you have to do it. Quite frankly, I don't trust a lot of people when it comes to my tax dollars. I want to see that you're gonna do the reduction, as opposed to saying, hey, we gave you $3 extra. Okay, well, let's give them a tax break of $1.50. We'll keep another $1.50 and do more stuff. So I want to see an equal reduction if they take it out of another pocket.
Good job.
The county, as Brian's told us, does a great job, but I still put in 2 cents, sorry, Brian, every year. So the bottom line gives you what your tax increase at a minimum will be for the next 8 years if you pass the school budget, if you pass the $71 million bond, and if you pass the $36.8 million bond. Next slide, please. So, these are your estimated tax increases for a $400,000 home, a $450,000 home, and a $500,000 home. That will be your yearly tax increase based on the numbers I previously showed you. So if you look at 500,000, Brian says the average, you just went up 815. Everything passes next year, it's 830. The next year is 1,120, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Cumulative, this is just an additive of the previous year. You keep adding them. You can see how much your taxes go up over 8 years, but the real chart would be the next one. So this is your estimated tax bill in whole for a house that's worth $400,000, $450,000, and a $500,000. If you're in a $500,000 house right now, you pay $10,340 is your tax bill. That's based on the current tax rate of 2068. The mathematical formula is grabbed from previous charts. You do the additions. This year you paid $10,340. In 2032, you'll be paying almost $16,000. These will be your tax bills for the next 8 years, assuming the school budget passes, assuming 70 million passes, and assuming 32 million passes. So you can kind of pick the value of your home, and you can see what your tax rate's going to be. There's been a lot of talk in town about tax caps and things of that nature. So having nothing to do on Sunday, I decided to put a tax cap on the school board just to see what would happen. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, if I put a tax cap on the school board that's different than the tax cap of the town is held to the CPI. We also have the ability to collect revenue, which the school does not. So I gave them an extra 1%. You can see it's 3.5% where Owen has his marker, where the town was calculated at 2.5. Again, you can see the value forcing a tax cap in. What essentially happens in those models is instead of going up $1, the school goes up about 47.50 cents. And then it goes to 52, 54, 55, so on and so forth. So it basically cuts that dollar in half. If you do that, your tax bill at 10.34 this year is 14.33 in 8 years. If you recall the previous chart, it was almost 16,000. So you actually save $1,600. Now this would mean you have to put a tax cap against the school board of roughly 3.5% a year. Go back to chart 3 or something like that. The next one. So again, that would be, if everything passes, this will be a tax bill estimated based on what we know today. Again, I still don't know state education funding because of the lawsuit, but if you do a you do an even Steven calculation and you grab from one, you grab from the other, it should net out to this anyways. I just wanted to show people that because I know people have asked me what's going to happen. You know, what are the bills going to look like? If you want to go back to the first slide, Owen, which, excuse me, gives the yearly increases. Yeah. So this is essentially what people have been asking me, what comes up. So I've plowed through the school budget, plowed through our budget, and this is what it is. Ask me any question you want.
So you're assuming that the numbers that you gave are if everything passes and then freezes?
Yeah.
You're not talking about additional, next year's a teacher contract. That's gonna come up.
And that's
I haven't
also,
calculated any of those numbers in.
no, I obviously have no insight into the teacher's contract.
Right.
This is keeping everything about normal. So
Also-
I do not have calculations in here for the teacher's contract. I don't know what that will do.
Also, you mentioned when they were up here talking about the money, future money, and Jason had mentioned, yeah, we're gonna have to come back and get, I forget what that number was, another 50 million?
That number would probably be beyond 2032. I figured I'd get a little too spongy if I go too much beyond 2032.
All right, my point is the numbers you gave are frozen in time if everything passes, correct?
That's correct. But anybody here could take these numbers and you can see if the $72 million bond doesn't pass, you take that number out and just look at the bottom. And for anybody in the audience, it's fairly straightforward to do your taxes. You take the number on the bottom and you just multiply it times the hundreds value of your house. So if your house is worth $400,000, you just multiply it times 400. So you take $1.29 times 400, right? You don't do the whole 400,000, you do 400. So you take, so these numbers here, to your point, Brian, if the $72 million bond fails, the 37 cents goes away.
Right.
Right? So it's not $1.67 next year, it's $1.30, assuming the 36 passes. So,
Interesting.
depending on what happens Tuesday, the following Tuesday, I can throw these numbers up again based on what passes.
Right.
And I can tell you what your tax bill is gonna be, probably within 50 to $100 a year.
Wow.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Questions? Comments? Anything else?
Nope, good job.
Owen, is Councilor Spencer still with us, and is she
She is.
able to speak?
And we all cross our fingers.
Counselor
Yes,
Spencer, do
let's
you-
ask her if she's able to speak and we can hear her.
Councilor Spencer, do you have anything to add, or?
I don't think so. We were kind of working on my sound during the presentation, and most of my questions were asked, so I think I am good. Thank you.
Okay, we can hear you, finally. Thank you. All right.
Problem solved.
All right. Moving right along. Town administrator.
Okay, first up, we need the council to set a schedule for review of the annual budget. That happens during the month of April. We have two options. A little bit different this year now that we're sharing this room with the school board. Typically, the second and fourth Tuesday will not be available, but Sheila would confirm today that the school board does not meet on the fourth Tuesday in April to the school vacation, so April 23rd is open. The schedule is pretty much the same, except one of the alternatives does provide for a Saturday morning workshop for the presentation of the fire, police, and public works budget. They both processes culminate in the adoption of the FY25 budget at the council's first meeting in May. So if you can provide some direction on that, we'll schedule the hearings and be on our way.
Councilor Chiarotrillo, you gonna say something?
No, I mean, I think I suggested that Saturday meeting, 'cause we did that in the past, which I have no problem with, because it's in the morning, and then we're up by noon, so. But I can do either one.
I like the one with the Saturday.
Oh, it's Saturday.
Yeah.
Councilor Flood, how about you?
Okay.
All right. Councilman McEachran.
Pick whichever's fine by me. We've done Saturdays before, years ago. We always did the Saturday marathon.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure the fire truck's going to come by. We going to be all set with that?
Right.
Did they leave? All the fire guys left?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
We get coffee and donuts.
I just want to make sure the fire truck's coming by like it. Jack, you're going to have to go check with your buddies on that, make sure.
So, yeah, I'm fine with whatever. Just for those who say Saturday mornings, obviously don't have daughters in dance or softball, but that's fine. But we'll work around it, so that's fine.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, well, I'm still doing it, so,
How about whatever works for you, Mr. Chairman?
yeah, whatever. I'll make-
The other one with the, I don't, whatever works for
All
you,
right,
right?
we'll do the Saturdays one.
Well, I was just saying that only because I didn't know, like, the 16th, we have all them, then it's CIP, so I didn't know if that was gonna be like a long.
Oh, it's a long day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was just saying the
It's
Saturday.
a long day.
I know Saturdays, whatever.
Yeah, Dave, that's fine. We'll do the Saturday one. That's fine.
Okay, so,
Council Spencer, you good with that? I know you had a conflict with either one, right? So,
Actually, no, this Saturday works better. Since we're done by noon, I need to go downstairs
Yep.
and run the rabies clinic for 1 o'clock, but yeah, I can do the morning, and that actually is preferable for me.
okay.
It's always fun to have the staff come in on a Saturday.
so now that we know the school board's not using this room for that Tuesday, the 23rd, we'll schedule the public hearing on that evening. Because the previous Thursday is typically a ZBA meeting in this room, so now the room will be available for the zoning board.
Okay.
All right? There was a hearing this morning before the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee on Senate Bill 589, which would allow the town to impose a 15% surcharge on out-of-town wastewater customers. And that's simply to build our economic development capacity and to also recognize the investment made into Derry's utilities by its residents and taxpayers, which allows the town to share these services. Going to Central Fire Station, excavation for the footings began last week, and actually, they were pouring concrete this week for the footings, so we're starting to see some activity finally coming out of the ground, which is good to see. We've been notified by Senator Shaheen of the annual federal congressionally directed spending program, so our senior staff is looking at that to determine if there's any appropriate projects. And on that vein, based upon last year's program, the police chief was notified today that our $587,000 grant for body cameras made it through the latest round, and hopefully those will be voted on by Congress this week. So we're making it through the process. Also, if you recall, the council approved of the town partnering with the Granite Estates Co-op for looking at some community development block grant planning funds regarding their water system. They were not in the position to proceed last year, or I've been notified that they may be in that position this year. So I'm expecting some additional meetings with our CDBG grant administrator, probably in the June or July timeframe. And finally, as the chairman noted, a note of appreciation to Jim Richardson for his service as a member of our fire department, culminating as chief, and about a 31-year career with the fire department. And also, I was notified this week that our long-term planner, George Seors, who's been here with us for 40 years, is planning to retire on September 1st. So we'll be working with HR to fill that position. So my
Everybody's leaving.
note of appreciation.
You're leaving, they're all going. They're running for the door.
all
You're not here
following me.
anymore.
Do you want
Phil.
George's job? Do you want George's job?
Yeah. You want to be the town planner now? You haven't done that yet.
I haven't done that yet.
All done, okay. All right, any questions for the town administrator? Anyone?
No.
All right. Moving along. We have a public hearing, 24-16, Resolution 2024-011, to accept unanticipated revenues from the New Hampshire DOT and authorize the utility agreement for the Exit 4A project. Mike Fowler, presenting.
He's got a nice spreadsheet just like I do.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Mike's been patiently waiting.
Very nice, Michael.
Yes.
Ah,
All right, good evening. A staff report's been presented along with a copy of a draft agreement to be asked for signature by the town administrator to be executed. Basically, what this is about is as the Exit 4A Contract B design, which is basically going to pick up at the town line. As everybody is aware, the interstate construction in the A contract, the bridge is being erected as we speak. Much of the right-of-way has been cleared almost up to Madden Road, North High Street. That means we're coming in this direction. The B contract has a lot more intense elements in terms of construction. We have obviously infrastructure along Folsom Road, and also the section of Shanito Road that needs to be reviewed for impacts to water and sewer. So the way that the process works with the state, because it's an existing utility, there are provisions for that utility to be relocated as part of the construction cost. And that'll be taken care of during the construction contract. What this agreement is doing today is the town is going to be engaging with an engineer to go out and review what those proposed relocations would look like. So if there's a conflict between a future drain line and our existing water line, we're going to dictate to them, let's put the water line under, we have to cut that, what does that design look like? And there's a number of those based on the intensity of some of the design work that needs to be done. So essentially what's being asked tonight is a commitment by the town council to accept this agreement, and what would happen is $126,730 contract would be executed with the state. They would be reimbursing the town all of that at 100%. So basically there's no net cost to the taxpayers, and what this does is it keeps the project design moving forward so that the bid can go out shortly, and then construction would start on the scheduled timeline that's been furnished to the council and to the public previously. So essentially what's being asked is for a supplemental appropriation and then acceptance of grant funds. So that's essentially what's in the staff report and the resolution. So if there's any questions, it's obviously a public hearing. I can certainly field those this evening.
Move to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion to open public hearing by Council Cherichello, second by Council McEachran. On the motion, Council Cherichello. Yes. Council Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Council Flood. Yes. Council Granessi.
Yes.
Council McEachran.
Yes.
Council Spencer.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Public hearing is now open. If you wish to speak on this, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Owen, you'll let us know if anyone's online.
Seeing none rise online, Mr.
Move
Chair.
to close public hearing.
Second.
All right, motion to close by Council Cherichello, second by Council Katsoukaris. On the motion, Council Cherichello.
Yes.
Council Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Council Flood. Yes. Council Granessi.
Yes.
Council McEachran.
Sure.
Council Spencer.
Nice
Yes.
spreadsheets.
And the chair votes yes. Public hearing is now closed. Councilors, questions, comments for Mr. Fowler?
As usual, Michael does a great job.
All right, Mr.
Thank you
McEachran,
with
take it
all the
away.
details, so I will get resolution happy. Resolution
ask a question
2024.
first?
Oh, did Aaron have a question?
I did just have one quick question.
Oh,
I think
sorry, Erin.
I think I'm confident on the answer, but I just want to ask it. It seems the theme of a lot of our discussions lately are what if things get delayed, or what if the cost changes. So this contract is very clear down to the penny of what we will get reimbursed. So I just feel I need to ask, how confident are we that we are going to come in within that number that is there?
So the good news about this particular contract is Tom Carrier had worked diligently with our Underwood engineers to come up with a scope of work. Tom is very experienced, obviously, as you know, in terms of the necessary elements. The state identified all of the locations that they were looking for the proposed conflicts and such. We went through, and there were a couple of iterations of this, but this is a pretty well-refined design. I think there was a slightly higher number, and Tom and Underwood worked that down to what you see currently here. So to answer your question, we're very confident that this would be within the contract limits. If there's any amendments, then we would go to the state. The state has to agree to go anything beyond the $126,730. So in other words, we're capped at that number, but we do feel confident that we can make that work within that time cost.
All right.
Thank you.
You okay, Aaron? Fine?
Yes, take it away, Councilor McEachran.
Okay. Resolution number 2024-011, to accept unanticipated revenues from NHDOT to authorize a utility agreement for the Exit 4A project. Whereas Section 915 of the Town Charter authorizes the Town Council to accept grant funding, and whereas the town is partnered with NHDOT and the Town of Londonderry on Exit 4A project, which includes extensive road work improvements in Derry, and whereas the town operates and maintains water, wastewater utilities in Derry, including in the project area. And whereas professional services are required to resolve any conflicts between the utilities and the Exit 4A corridor design, and whereas all related engineering expenses for this work are being reimbursed by the state of New Hampshire, now therefore be it resolved in council pursuant to RSA 3195B that the town administrator is hereby authorized to accept up to $126,730.58 from the NHDOT as reimbursement for professional services to design resolutions to this to these conflicts. My apologies. Further, to authorize the town administrator to execute the utility agreement with the State of New Hampshire Department of Transportation, which will govern this work. Resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage. Adopted March 5th, 24.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Geckman, seconded by Councilor Cherichello. On the motion, Councilor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris? Councilor Flood? Councilor Ganesi?
Yes.
Councilman Geckman?
Yes.
Councilor Spencer?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Mike. And you're still in the hot seat. New business, 2421. Resolution 2024-006 to amend power purchase agreement at the landfill.
All right, I'd like to invite Jeff Moulton up here, Chair of the Net Zero Task Force as well, to provide some additional insight. And I also have Rob Greer from Encore, who has a presentation to provide after we provide just a brief staff report update. So as everybody recalls, we were here back in January to talk about the status of the landfill project. So I just want to go through and just do a brief backdoor update as far as where we stand on that. So in 2021, there was an RFP that was put out for putting solar at the landfill. There were several years of planning and design had gone into this through the Net Zero Task Force as to the feasibility of the project. There were some changes in legislation around that time that made that much more feasible for the town to consider. Obviously, there's some goals that the Net Zero Task Force are looking at in terms of sustainable power and energy for the town that would be met by this, but also there were some cost savings that were elaborated. So the process went through, there was multiple 7 firms that looked at these options, and ultimately the town council was presented with a power purchase agreement working with Encore for a period of 25 years. And so that put it in motion for a 6.1 cent fixed rate if there was a US DOE grant that we've been working with of $500,000. If that grant was not going to be achieved, the rate was going to be 6.8 cents fixed for the 25-year period. Town's leasing the land to Encore. There's a payment in lieu of taxes, $20,000 per year. That was also a component of that agreement. So that was all approved, set in motion in early 2022. After that, Encore and the town worked through a number of the regulatory hurdles, meaning planning board, working through some internal items that we had to work through.
Thank you. Almost set, sweetheart.
Permits for through New Hampshire DES for the landfill modification, alteration of terrain, and a shoreland permit. Those are still ongoing. But as we're working through the early stage of this, there's a critical phase that Eversource has to provide approval of your project. And so it's technical more so than anything else. That took much longer than was anticipated. So Encore was trying to get some answers on that, and quite honestly struggled a little bit in getting that information back from Eversource. So when you look at some of the regulatory hurdles, we were also working on a parallel track to get the US DOE grant. I've been in front of council for authorization of that. So as we started to look at this project, Encore had incurred some changes in the conditions of the market. So obviously, there had been some changes in terms of COVID-related market supply chain, and also some financing changes. Obviously, interest rates were at one level 2 to 3 years ago. They've changed drastically since then. So some of the assumptions are not the same as they were when this contract was signed. And I'll invite Rob up here in just a second to kind of go through some of those in specificity. But essentially, they have asked, and we have worked to reconcile some of those concerns. The agreement at this point is looking for an amendment. And let me go through a couple of the key features of that and how this is going to be, potentially going forward. So originally, this project was going to be producing 3.7 million kilowatt hours that would be available for net metering purposes, town buildings. The new one good thing is the way that this has been repurposed and redesigned. There's been some efficiencies gained as a result of just newer technology over this time frame. The production it will increase to 4.3 or 4.325 million kilowatt hours annually. So there's some production gains as a result of where we are in the time frame. The original contract had asked for 30 town buildings to be included. Now that we're at this point, there's 2 pump stations that are related to the Southern New Hampshire Water project, one on Rockingham Road and the other one's at the town line on Manchester Road. Those were not in the original contract. Significant users, 500,000 kilowatt hours per year. Those will now be included in the new contract. We talked about the fixed rate, originally 6.1 or 6.8, depending on what we achieve for the USDOE grant. What's been asked is a 2% escalator starting in year 1. And what that means essentially is if you started, let's just use the 6.8 cent rate with the assumption that the USDOE grant is not achieved. In year 25, if you escalate that at 2%, the rate the town would be paying is 11.1 cents. So you ask, what does that look like in terms of our current and our past history? So we have been buying third-party supply for about 15 years, and that number has been very favorable. And again, I've talked a lot about the savings that we've had. Right now, we're paying 10.7 cents. The Eversource rate is 8.2 cents as of February 1st. And again, that rate has fluctuated a lot in the last 5 years in particular. We've seen rates as high as 22 cents in the last period around this time last year. So the point that's trying to be made here is that even with an escalator, as much as we wanted to see the fixed 6.8 cents, to have a known rate for 25 years is going to be something that is dependable, for the town to rely on. So you're going to have a dedicated price, and even at 10 years out, you're still under 9 cents per kilowatt hour. So again, favorable rates. We would be purchasing all of or not all, but much of the supply for use at our town buildings, and you're going to see that impact in the town budgets each of the years. And then the final item that we have within this is we wanted to institute as we've gone through the USDOE grant, we're working to make sure that we can achieve the $500,000 revenue, but some of the terms of the grant, it may not be a full recognition of that. So let's just say it's $250,000 that we take in, so a midpoint. There's going to be a proration of a starting rate between 6.1 and 6.8. So if it's $250,000, we're going to be picking a spot in between as our year 1 rate, and then the 2% escalation moves forward from there. So we worked diligently. There were a number of meetings that the Net Zero Task Force, Jeff, Mike Fodeman, Tom Carden, so all of those volunteers have done a tremendous amount of work to try to come up with a sustainable item. So now the biggest point that I wanted to put out there is the cumulative savings. So originally when this was brought forward to the town council, the number was $3.5 million of cumulative savings was estimated over the 25-year contract. With the increase in production, but now we have the escalated 2%, that's going to be dropping by $250,000. But when you look at that in the context of overall savings and the goals that this is going to do, it's roughly a 10% total reduction are about $10,000 per year of savings that are going to be not realized at this point if you do endorse the revised power purchase agreement. So those are the major topics that we wanted to talk about today. There's no changes to the tax payment of $20,000 per year, so that is still in this particular contract. So we're just talking about the provisions of what the town's going to be paying for its electricity costs over the course of this 25-year contract. So I'll hand it over to Jeff for any additional comments, and then I'd like to invite Rob up to go through his PowerPoint in terms of the justification of some of these increases and how it affects everything.
Yeah, I think Mike covered most of it, but we did spend a lot of time reviewing a lot of different scenarios of what we thought was best for the town and to keep Encore engaged with the project. And as Mike said, we think there's a negligible change in the overall savings for the town. But more importantly, we also looked at what's going on in the marketplace. There's a lot of projects being postponed, even canceled on the energy sector because of rising costs and interest rates. And we don't believe if we did decide to move on to issue a new RFP that we could replicate what we have here. We just don't think we'd come close to it. So I think this is a fair compromise with Encore to keep them in the program, keep our rates at a very low rate and unknown rate for the next 25 years. But even at the end of year 25, we're somewhere between 10 and 11 cents a kilowatt hour, which is the current rate today with Eversource. So I think it's a good deal for the town and fair to Encore.
All right, so with that, Owen, can we queue up, there's, I think, 12 slides that are related to this, and I don't know, call Rob up to introduce himself and just kind of go through just a justification as to how we arrived or how it was arrived to this change in the PPA. So here's Rob Greer representing Encore.
No end to this.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Rob Greer, Encore Renewable Energy. And for changing the slides, is there a clicker or the button here?
So I think that button will.
Oh, yeah, I'll just do that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so that-
All right, all good. So I'll spend just very little time on Encore, but we are a solar and storage developer based in Burlington, Vermont. And Encore, as in our name, it's giving a new life to projects. So that's always going to be a part of our DNA, like a second act. And in this case, it's the local landfill. And we continue to just increase the number of megawatts getting installed back from 2009 all the way up through now. So this is just a good graph to show that, yep, we're getting projects in and making it happen and saving towns money.
Questions? Yeah.
All right, so now for the meat of it. The unforeseen cost increases, at least for solar, you can see anything prior to those two vertical lines in there. We were really used to seeing price decreases, especially in modules, and the overall costs always just going down, down, down. And then we got to that point where you get to those two lines, and we had won the RFP prior to that, and we're finally getting the PPA and all the agreements put together. And you can just see every graph after that just showed continuous cost increases that just kept really hitting us as a developer. And so it just didn't stop after that. Now, for the project specific, the first comment, you can see procurement volatility. We have a director of estimation and procurement, always looking to get us the good deals, get stuff early. And you can see it's really volatile. We estimated total builds and cost increase at $959,232. Now, when you break that down into the different categories, for solar panels, racking, that's the biggest one. With racking, you can kind of relate it to steel pricing. Steel pricing has settled down a bit, especially over the last few months. That could be something that definitely goes back up. So that's part of what we're really keeping an eye on and trying to keep things moving well. for the civil, electrical, and then data acquisition systems. That was another big one that got us. So really, when you take all these different categories, we were averaging about a 20 to 30% cost increase with them. And then on top of that, there is the cost increases for financing. And when you look back in 2022, about a 1.5% treasury rate. And right now, it's probably closer to 4%. And so that really had, from those numbers above, you could see really raised the cost for financing these larger scale projects. And Mike covered this. This is just a neat back and forth that shows original terms with the revised terms, and then, as Mike said, the third one down is the main commercial term change at the 2% annual escalation rate over the 25 years. There's been some other changes from the increased production. It's about a 15% increase in solar production, flexibility for the new meters to be added in, and the flexibility in how we handle the grant money. Project milestones, also, as Mike had said, a lot has gone into it, from our partners working the permitting, us working permitting, getting the interconnection study that really took a very, very long time. And we're at this point now where we can actually see the ability to start construction. I believe in the form we had in the fall. I had summer in here. That's probably as early as we could do, but summer or fall, I think, is a good realistic expectation for being able to start the construction if we have the ability to have approval. So thank you for listening through all that and the opportunity to come up here.
Questions?
Yeah, sure. I am painfully aware of the recording process and what I do, and I hold quotes for about 30 or 60 days. What's your level of confidence that we're going to be able to maintain some stability until you start making these purchases for these items, or have you made the purchases now? Or are we 6 or 8 months away and price stability is still a question in the marketplace because supply chain is still a mess, particularly in this field?
Right, yeah, and this is why I was working closely with Colin. He's our Director of Estimation and Procurement. So he was the one that showed a level of confidence. I don't know the answer to exactly when we have bought or will be buying certain levels of equipment, but I do know that he knows of this time frame of coming in here to time as we get everything ready for construction, and so that was all taken into consideration.
So in the interest of time, and I'll be a little straightforward with you here, this is one bite at the apple. If things change, I will not go back again. So I
understand.
Respectfully suggest you get it right.
Yes.
And if you're confident tonight, fine. If you're not confident, I have no problem with you walking away tonight and getting me some confident numbers, because there will be no other bite at the apple from me.
Understood. I am confident. Worked with finance, worked with other departments to really put this all together, and especially worked a ton with the town to calculate the savings and every single aspect, for sure.
I appreciate the honest answer back. Thank you.
And one other thing I just want to add from the town's perspective, if you look at the timeline from when it was approved to when it was originally going to be constructed, it was going to be a 2023 construction. The good news is the interconnection study is now completed, and we have 2 permits that have gone through preliminary review with DES. The third one has been achieved. We have planning board approval. So if this is all squared away this evening, there's going to be a discussion shortly thereafter about completion of those permits, getting what the requirements are, and then they're ready to go to order, notice to proceed, and, so that's a much more firm commitment than kind of where they were, 2 years ago.
You and I have been dealing with each other for 30 years, Mike. You know where I'm going.
Absolutely.
So the only other question would be, you said there are 30 buildings. Do you have any schools in this?
Not
looking to hook up the new school if it passes?
So we had talked about that as a possible future opportunity. At this point, the group net metering is only considering town buildings. But I would say this, just as a larger discussion, right now, the buying groups for electricity are combined with the schools. So in other words, we've always gone with the schools in
Right.
purchasing electricity. Jane and I talk about that very frequently. We're on the same contracts for natural gas and electricity. So I think at some point in the future, that's going to happen. But in terms of where we are right now, the commitment is only just on the town buildings.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously want to take advantage of any cost savings and
Yep.
help the schools out too.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
it's a cooperative business.
Mr. Moulton has something to add.
Yeah, the schools is a pretty big load, 6 or 7 schools, and there wouldn't be enough room at the landfill to accommodate all that.
So that would be something in a subsequent phase. So that's some of the things that we're working through. So for the purpose of this contract, it's just the 30 town buildings, and then we added those 2 pump stations once we found out there was additional capacity to be acquired.
Okay.
Councilor Churchill.
I've got questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I look at the pros and cons. So I agree on the pro side, we have a number that we can plan, either 6.1 or 6.8 cents going to 11 cents. So we can plan that out, and that's the part that I do like. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like the fact that we're changing after an RFP, which we're changing the terms of the contract. That's the part that really sort of bothers me a little bit. But anyway, so I'm wrestling with that. Do you know what the total cost is of the solar panels? Because my colleague over there mentioned the cost of solar panels. I'm reading that solar panels have gone way down because there's a glut on the market. What's the overall cost of what we're putting up? Do you know, Mike?
The overall cost of the modules, I don't have a firm number right in front of me, but this is based off of way back in 2021 pricing, and then going through all the way till now. So it's been, in looking at that time frame, certainly the module pricing has gone up considerably. And I think when I broke it down in that graph, if I'm not mistaken, racking was probably even a bigger one because of the steel.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe the racking and then the costs of human labor have gone up, obviously. But the solar panels, what I'm reading have gone way down, both in Europe and the United States. So I'm kind of, I really would be interested to find, was there any discussion, Mr. Moulton, about purchasing?
Yeah,
Come on up, Jeff.
we looked at that 2 years ago. 2 years ago, as a municipality, we couldn't take advantage of the tax break, the 30%. And they can take advantage of that as well as the accelerated depreciation. So we kind of tabled that when we saw the very stable fixed rates we saw in the RFP.
Okay, so you're looking at numbers that are 2 years old on the purchase side of things.
Right. And that, that purchase price we looked at of around $5 million was something that probably would change now.
Yeah.
Now, there is an option in the contract that at the end of 5 or 6 years, six,
that we could purchase.
we can purchase it.
Okay, that's good to
And then
know.
I think at the 12 and 15, we don't know what that price would be.
Right.
Because the IRS regulations mandates that they sell it at a fair market value.
Right. And now you're bringing up the IRS. So there's a new program called Direct Pay, which would pay up to 30% of the overall cost.
Right.
And that includes municipalities.
Yes.
Which is new. So, I'm just looking at what's going to make the most sense for the Derry ratepayers or the town actually. Like I said, I don't think it's a deal breaker that it goes up to 11 cents. I get that, and as Mike put, we've seen Eversource up to 21 cents, and I know that every 6 months they're looking at pricing.
I won't speak for Mike, but our sense was that this was a big project, it's complex. And we were kind of nervous about, okay, we get it built, now we got to operate something we've never operated before and dealing with operations and maintenance. We felt much better if we let a third party run with it for the first 5 years, get all the kinks out, and then look at the purchase option
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, I like that fact that you're saying in year 6, we can take a look at that, so.
Could I add one comment to that too?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sure. And we are actually in the process of becoming our own independent power producer. So that means we own the asset long term. If you were to talk to us a few years ago, we'd get the project to a certain point, have to sell off the project. That's not the case anymore.
Right. Now, you as the developer, are you able to take this direct pay from the IRS? Do you get that credit?
As the developer, it's a tax credit.
Okay. So, a lot of things running through my brain here because I'm actually doing solar at the county as well. Only they're buying it with federal dollars, and so
I think,
anyway.
Yeah, I think solar panels, you know it's better than me, but did go up, and now they're coming back.
Yeah,
Coming
yeah.
back down.
So, I'm going to support it, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really torn that on principle, we really should put it back out to RFP, but I don't know. It's not, I guess that's not that big of a deal. 6.8 cents to 11 cents is not a big deal. I like the fact that we can properly plan over the years, but that's where I'm at, so.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right,
Resolution time?
take it away.
Resolution time. Once I open it up. Resolution 2024-006 to amend a group net metering purchase power, closed agreement at the closed landfill, where Section 5.1 of the Town Charter designates the Town Council as the governing and legislative body of the town, and whereas the Net Zero Task Force has been working towards sustainable energy development with solar generation as a key component, and whereas the Town Council, under Resolution 2022-009, authorized the town administrator to execute a power purchase agreement with Derry Solar LLC, and whereas delays by Eversource with processing interconnection applications and extraordinary inflationary pressures have transformed the project's economies, and whereas staff in the Net Zero Task Force have negotiated an amended group net metering power purchase agreement to ensure the economic viability of the project while preserving overall 90% of the economic benefit to the community. Now therefore be it resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to execute an amended agreement with group net metering power purchase agreement with Derry Solar LLC for the development of a solar power at the closed landfill. Resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage, March 5, 2024.
Second.
Ooh, there was a delay.
Waiting for Phyllis.
Motion by Counselor McEachran, second by Counselor Katsoukaris. On the motion, Counselor Cherichello.
Yes.
Counselor Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Counselor Flood.
Yes.
Counselor Granessi.
Yes.
Counselor McEachran.
Yes.
Everyone's hesitating. Counselor Spencer.
Yes.
She hesitated too.
Yeah, and the chair votes yes. Passes. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate the details. Thank you.
Moving along, 24-22, Resolution 2024-010, to approve and fund a collective bargaining agreement with the SEIU Derry Police Supervisors. Mr. Karen will be presenting.
Thank you. As the council is aware, 2 of our agreements with our collective bargaining units expires as of June 30th. We successfully negotiated both successor agreements with the units. The council approved our contract with the Derry Patrolmen's Association at your last meeting. And during our discussions with the police supervisors, which is the agreement before the council this evening, we strive to maintain the appropriate separation between the wage scales between the patrolmen and their supervisors. And then we tested that against the market, and we reached what we believe is a fair and equitable resolution to a contract. It is, first year is simply assigning our coworkers on a place on the revised scales. And then the remaining 4 years of the agreement, so it's a 5-year contract, those scales will be adjusted based upon the actual change in the consumer price index between 2 and 4.5%. And that feature is shared with the dairy patrolman's contract with the council approved for the out years. So we would request that the council approve this resolution, which would confirm and ratify a contract with our dairy police supervisors for the next 5 fiscal years.
Questions? Councilor Grassy?
Mr. Chairman, if no one has any questions, I read that contract. Contract's really good. They definitely, so I move that the council approve resolution number 2024-010 to approve and fund a collective bargaining agreement with SEIU Dairy Police Supervisors. Whereas Section 5.1 of the Town Charter establishes the Town Council as governing and legislative body of the town, therefore empowering the council to enter into contracts, and whereas a town administrator pursuant to 8.6 of the charter has proposed that the town enter into collective bargaining agreement with SEIU Dairy Police Supervisors for the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2029. And whereas pursuant to RSA 273-A, the legislative body must make an appropriation to fund the cost items of the collective bargaining agreement. And whereas the cost items of this collective bargaining agreement applicable to fiscal year 2025 should be included in the FY25 budget. And the council is aware of and acknowledges the future costs of this agreement, which the town should be obligated to fund. Now therefore be it resolved in council that the terms, conditions, and costs of the collective bargaining agreement between the town of Derry and the SEIU Dairy Police Supervisors for the period July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2029 are hereby approved. Further, the town administrator is hereby directed to include the sum of $140,926 in the FY25 budget to fund the FY25 cost of the agreement. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage, adopted March 5th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Granessi, seconded by Councilor McEachern. On the motion, Councilor Cherichello.
I'm a yes.
Councilor Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Councilor Flood.
Yes.
Councilor Granessi.
Yes.
Councilor McEachern.
Yes.
Councilor Spencer.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, 7-0. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, once again, I'd like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the police officers and the negotiating team from the town side. This is the second contract we've had in the last couple weeks, so thank you very much. I see some of the gentlemen in the back.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the positive negotiations, and looking forward to the next 5 years of working with you gentlemen and ladies at the police department. Thank you.
I concur. And thank you for being patient back there this evening.
Good job.
Long night.
Thank you.
Somebody took precedence tonight, so.
Hey, we got a ton of protection though.
Yeah. Somebody then wanted to do spreadsheets, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take my lumps too.
Yeah.
All right, moving along, 24-23, Resolution 2024-013 to authorize expenditures from the Police Revolving Fund. Chief Fioli.
We're almost done. I promise I'll be brief. I do have a couple of slides here that we're going to go
Right,
through,
good deal,
so you can
slides.
see them in front of you. Basically, we're looking for just under $29,000 to be transferred from the Detail Revolving Fund, which is a revenue fund you may be familiar with. So there'll be no effect on the tax rate for these purchases that I'm requesting this evening. Basically, looking for 4 software packages to assist us in our daily operations and/or accreditation efforts as we move forward with state accreditation. We have recently checked the detail revolving fund, and it has a balance of just under $260,000. So there's plenty of money there for these reasons. The first package is WatchGuard redaction software. Now that's a bit of a misnomer. WatchGuard is the camera system that we have in our cruisers, the cruiser cameras. But this software, while it can be used to redact video from that software system, it'll also work with any video system that we have. So we could collect video from a bank or video from a store or a Ring door camera, anything like that. And we could use this same software to redact portions of audio or video from that software as well, from that video. Previous to obtaining this, we have a trial version now. Previous to obtaining that trial version, we relied on Owen and his staff to assist us with redaction of video software, It'd be much easier and efficient for my staff to do it, obviously. And this also provides a more efficient response time to right-to-know requests that we get at the police station or discovery for court purposes. That cost is $4,995. The next software package is called Power Engage. It's community engagement software. This software is integrated with our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch, and our records management system. Basically, we collect information at call intake. We collect the cell phone number and email address so we can immediately deliver texts or emails to the people that we're taking calls from. So as officers are responding, people in the community will get real-time text updates that we're on the way or that we're actually arriving at scene. So we interact with them on a daily, on a minute-by-minute basis, I should say, as we're responding. This software subscription is $7,640. The setup fee is $3,000, and that totals $10,640. And the next is Guardian Tracking System. Now, Guardian Tracking is a software package that is used for internal affairs and other reasons. It's used to ask for all aspects of personnel management. That includes response to resistance, or what we typically call use of force incidents, performance evaluations, and the overall well-being and mental health of our staff. Once built, this system would act as an early warning system, early intervention system for our staff as well. This software is required as part of our attempts to become accredited. And as I mentioned earlier, we enrolled in the New Hampshire State Accreditation Program back in August. I'm happy to say that we're about 80% complete with that self-assessment. We have 114 standards in the state system we have to comply with, and we are compliant with 93 of those 114 as of today.
Wow.
This software subscription costs $6,426 for approximately 85 users. Implementation is there's a training piece there for $500, total $6,926 for that piece. The next one is Convey 911 translation software. Now, previous to this, New Hampshire Department of Emergency Services and Communication, what you might know as E911, offered a translation service to agencies in the state. They offered that service really for emergency services, 911 calls. But it became a crutch that we in law enforcement all used anytime we needed translation services. We didn't just use it for 911 calls. So it became a really costly endeavor for the Department of Emergency Services and Communications to maintain. They get billed by minutes, by usage for the software. And so the state, rightfully so, put their foot down and said, we can't be using it for everyday work. It's only for 911 calls. So we're left to find our own solution now. We've checked with agencies around us. They're using this Convey 911 translation software. It really provides up to 60 languages it translates for, and it also offers American Sign Language translation services, and it's based on a phone app. Our officers can use it in the field. We can use it in dispatch. It could even be used, once we sign up, I'm sure the fire department and other agencies could take advantage of it as well. And that software costs $6,130. In addition to the cost noted above, there are per minute usage fees for this software. There's $1.25 a minute for telephone use, and if it's a live video session, it's $2.25 a minute. So the total cost for all the software packages is $28,691. As I said, we seek to use detail revolving fund for this purchase. It's no effect on the tax rate at all. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a quick
And
question. So,
if I can't answer a question, Captain Michaud is going to bill me.
quick question. So, when I think of software, I think of like updates, yearly upgrades, things like that. So, is that something that's gonna?
Yes, that's a good question. There are ongoing support fees yearly. I've already talked with IT. Doug Rathburn has agreed to incorporate those costs into his budget as we move forward.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm going to ask another question for Charlie. How does this affect the dog? Is the dog involved in this at all?
None of these software packages affect the dog.
Charlie wants to know if the video,
By way of
is
update,
the video going to be on the dog collar?
Yep.
No.
By way of update, the dog, the K-9 program is fully developed at this point. We're just waiting for the delivery of the dog, which
you
should
go,
be
Charlie.
in a week or two. And the officer is slated to attend the Boston Police K-9 Academy April 1st.
Oh, great.
Good stuff.
Quick question.
Bonus feedback.
Hunter Granessi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. Has it, Derry Police ever been certified?
Accredited?
Accredited, I'm sorry.
No, this is a first for us.
I think that's
We're going for state accreditation. This will be the first, and my goal is to, once we obtain state accreditation, move into the CLIA national accreditation process.
That's awesome. This will be a great tool. That's awesome. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Cello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the software packages you mentioned, editing of audio and video.
Yes.
How's that going to work? Are you going to have someone dedicated to being able to edit audio or video?
It can be any one of our staff members. There'll be multiple staff members trained to do it. Software
And will you create a policy on when that gets done and how that gets done? I'm just, when I saw it, I was
It's
just
a simple request for, when we receive a right-to-know request or a request from an attorney for a copy of something, we'll assign the task to either an officer or a civilian member. It doesn't really have to be an officer to perform that function.
Right. Okay.
It's a computer software system. Shouldn't be any.
I just get nervous of the fact that you can edit real-time video, audio. or video.
Yes, we haven't, it's a redaction software. It's meant to allow us not to edit so much as redact certain pieces of audio or certain pieces of video that might be offensive because it's a gory scene, or it's there's something mentioned, someone's date of birth or social security number is mentioned on the, we would be able to redact that piece of audio.
Right.
That's all that's intended to be.
But individually, anyone could do that? It's not going to be somebody that's assigned
Yeah,
to do that?
and we're not changing the entire videotape. We're just removing or blocking out pieces of video or pieces of audio.
And it would be a single login as well, Counselor. So we would be able to manage who had access to that program. It's not something that everyone who has access to our camera system would be able to do.
Right.
It's a singular login.
Okay. And the only thing that's kind of in the back of my mind is, and this was probably a few years ago, there was video of an incident at a gas station. The person that received that video basically cropped it. And if you were to watch that, you would believe his side of the story. Whereas if you didn't crop it, it actually showed a whole different version of what happened. So that's the part that gets me a little bit worried. You know, with redacting and all that kind of stuff. Who does the redacting? Does it change the narrative?
Our staff is fully trained on what can be redacted.
Okay.
From any report and or video.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Seeing no other questions, I'd like to read the resolution.
Sure.
Resolution 2024-013 to authorize expenditure from the Police Revolving Fund. Where Section 5.1 of the Town Charter designates the Town Council as the governing and legislative body of the town, and as such is empowered to adopt resolutions and ordinances, including the appropriations of funds, and whereas the Derry Police provides special detail services for businesses, groups, individuals requiring specialized traffic control, crowd control, other security, and whereas the Town Council, under Resolution 2017020, authorize the creation of the Police Detail Revolving Fund pursuant to RSA 3195H to separately account for and expend funds for this purpose. And whereas a surplus now exists in the fund and the Derry Police Department is in need of acquiring software which would assist in law enforcement accreditation program which ensures compliance with standards and current best practices. Now therefore be it resolved in council, hereby authorizes the withdrawal of $28,691 from the from the Police Detail Revolving Fund for the purchase of software programs associated with accreditation program. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage.
Second.
Motion by Counsel McEachran, second by Counsel Katsoukaris. On the motion, Counsel Cherichello.
Yes.
Yes.
Katsoukaris.
Yes.
Counsel Flood.
Yes.
Counsel Granessi.
Yes.
Counsel McEachran.
Yes.
Counsel Spencer.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. I think Counsel Katsoukaris wants to ride home in the wagon, in the back of the wagon. Before you leave.
Only if you come with me.
My officer's left. You'll have to sit in the front seat of my cruiser, sorry. Before I relinquish the microphone, I want to extend a sincere thank you to Councilor Katsoukaris for all your support over the years. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if
Chief,
there's
thank
no
you.
other business, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, hold on.
Wait.
Oh, my apologies.
What?
Wait, more.
Hold on. Brian, do you have any council comments, questions?
I just got a quick comment. I just want to mention with Phyllis, our last meeting, it's been a pleasure working with her as a state rep for 10 years. Also, all the work she did at the county, too. I mean, people don't realize that when you're a state rep, you're also a delegation member at the county, and she was on the executive board. So really enjoyed working with her. We're going to miss her. So thank you for everything you've done, Phyllis.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Doug, any?
No,
Thank you, Phyllis.
my pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Counsel Granessi?
That's all right. Thank you.
I don't know if this will work. Next Tuesday, we all know we have to vote. There's going to be an embarrassingly low number of turnout. There's 19,000 people in here, in this town registered, give or take. Important subjects, important people need to be selected, and people are on both sides. Get up and vote. You don't complain if you don't vote. You're complacent and you're just, you're not going to accept the outcome. If you win, then don't gloat. Just be glad you won. If you lose, don't complain. Just work with the other side to try to make it work for everybody. The kids deserve better, but there are a lot of people financially hurting, and we just got to find the happy medium, and we got to make it work, win or lose. And to all my high school age kids out there who have the day off, and if you're 17 or 18 and you live in Derry, volunteer. Get involved, be part of the solution. Email Lisa, contact me, I'll make it happen. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Counsel Granessi?
Phyllis, I just want to personally say thank you. Thank you for your service in the town, up at the State House. It's been my pleasure working with you side by side on the council the
Thank
past
you.
year. I've learned a lot from you, so thank you very much.
Thank
And don't
you.
forget to come visit us.
Thank you. Thank
And I
you,
would-
everybody.
I would echo the same comments. You and I have been working together since the early 90s. It has been an absolute pleasure and honor working with you and getting to know you, both as a counselor, planning board, the town GOP chair, and working with you. And actually, I am thrilled to be continuing working with you when you make your next run for state rep next year. So
Yes.
thank you for
Yeah.
signing up again, and you and I will continue to work together, and I really look forward to it.
No, I love it up there. Thank you very much for all the compliments.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
So, and just to echo what everyone's saying, so thank you for 8 years of dealing with you, whenever. It's funny, when I was up at the State House getting all those proclamations.
I know.
I went in, I'm like, Phyllis, you're like, just one name, like Cher and Pink and all that. It's like, just, you say Phyllis and everyone knows who I'm talking about, so.
Wow.
So, but thank you very much for
beautiful.
everything, and I think you wanted to say
Thank
something?
you. No, I just wanted to thank everybody for everything that you've done for me, the town administrator, who's my dear friend, and this board, which is unbelievably good, the best board I've worked with, and our secretary, and Sheila Bodenreger, our secretary. You know, we are blessed to have these wonderful people, and you just ask for any help, and it's there. And if I could take 2 seconds to read you a little poem, and then I'm going to shut up and go home. Okay, this is to all my senior citizen friends. I'm going to tell you how very valuable you are. We are more valuable than any of the younger generations. We have silver in our hair, we have gold in our teeth, we have stones in our kidney, and we have lead in our feet. And we are all blessed to do it. Okay, finish, do it right. We are lead in our feet, and we are all loaded with natural gas. As I look around, I see many seniors, and you folks will have these same privileges someday. Thank you very much, and love you all.
Thank you. So, with
There
that,
is really no topping that.
Phyllis,
so-
I'm going to let you adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
You do this.
Oh, everybody's gonna be happy. It's 9:45. We're never here this
Yeah.
late. Eva, time to go home. The meeting's over.
All right.
Thank you very much for everything.